Welcome to Miss Martin Muses and another night of pub crawl. We are on night 2, guest 2. Where we've already had our first drink at our first pub, and now we're going to our nondescript pub. So I was going to say, I think you chose a pub, and then we decided to change it. So we're right now out in the street deciding where we want to go, and it is none other than Magitek Mags.
Hi.
Hey,
Everybody.
making her Miss Martin Muses debut, I should say. Yeah, first time guest here.
Well, glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to come on. And like I said, this pub crawl is a great place to meet new and exciting people. And now, everyone, if you have not subscribed to Magitek Mags, please go ahead and do so. She's got lots of good content. And let's see, whoops, where's the wrong button there. She's 430 subs, I think you're about.
I'm actually 470 subs, but I don't have near enough watch hours. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So
All right.
it's all good. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay,
it is what it is.
Well, no, for sure. Well, people, go ahead and give her some watch hours and some more subs, because we all need subs. I need, I need 150 subs to be completely monetized with my AdSense, but I did reach the first threshold, and so thank you for everyone that helped me there. And look who's in the chat. It is Corey Cochran. Hello. At least this time I won't be late. Hey, it is okay if you're late. You are never late. Jacob Ironside is here giving us roses and saying hello. So is Stephen Ransom is here. Let's see, everyone. Oh yeah, the X Twitter. I've been Xing a lot of people. Yeah, sharing this on not Twitter, says Stephen Ransom. Been looking forward to this since it was announced. Oh, well, that's good. They're talking to Jacob here. Got some questions, and it is Meteor Advocate Timon. He is trying to get the meteor to come and take out the planet. Well, hopefully. I don't know whether I want him to be successful or not. Corinthians. Okay, are they playing? Oh, I understand. Football is life. So I hope your team does well, especially down there in Brazil. So well done, Corinthians. And thank you for catching the replay that a team or a band. It is a football club, and everyone knows everywhere but America, your home football club is like your god. Stephen Ransom says, Mags, how's that puppy? Oh, how's the puppy?
He's doing well. He's about he's gonna be 6 months soon. So we're gonna be heading to vacation, and I'm gonna be swimming with him. He's a chocolate lab, so he's a rambunctious and exuberant puppy, but he is growing and he's very, very sweet. And it's so funny. My cat has not quite taken to him yet. So she loved the previous dog, but she grew up with that one since she was like a baby. So it's having a new dog in the house is a little challenging for her. So
Okay, so we've got some pet stress going on. Bio de Guilty Gaming is here. Hello, welcome to Miss Martin Muses. What's up? Well, we're up still. At this point in my life, I'm like, oh my gosh. I've been worshiping the god of sleep lately. Hello, Zakrot. Thank you. Everyone's saying hello. I'm here to support you. Well, thank you. I'm and for Mags. And America's Ass is here. Hello. Hey, everyone. Look, 2 ladies who have been on my show. Yes, indeed, we have. And JT Gunn was part of night 1 of Pub Crawl. So always good to see.
Gunn.
Yeah. Great to see everybody. So I think that's it. And for all of you that will be coming in and listening on the replay, welcome. Well, tonight, as everyone knows, as we get our second drink, though technically I am drinking always a non-alcoholic drink. Those days are over for me, but we like to discuss various topics, and the guests bring us a topic, and Magitek Mags has chosen fiction, that past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we've all grown up with some of our favorites, including it's funny. I didn't know about Lord of the Rings when I was little. I read Narnia a lot, but if it weren't for Narnia to have that kind of I always call Narnia the childlike version of LOTR, Lord of the Rings,
Mhm.
because it's not as grandiose, so to speak, and has a bigger world and all these races and creatures and names of places or what have you, but it's definitely has that childlike imagination. And so if it weren't for Narnia, I wouldn't have fallen in love with Lord of the Rings later with the Peter Jackson movies, and then started reading Lord of the Rings. So
Mhm. Yeah, and then you realized, holy crud, yeah. It's like
yeah.
it's like, the movies were good, but wow, those books. Well, before we keep going, we continue on, it is all the way from the future. Lethal Lightning gives me a $2 Australian super chat. Hey, babe. And he's given a rose. And I'm not sure what that middle one is. Is that another kind of a rose? But loads of roses. Thank you, Lethal. It's always good to see you. And of course, I gave him our little ship of rose and a, a bolt of lightning. Thank you for. Thank you for being here. I think all of us, thank you, Lethal. It's always great to see you, and thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. I'm still getting used to the super chats.
Yeah, well, I know. Congratulations! I know this has taken you. This has been a challenge to get here. So congratulations again on
Oh,
getting here.
well, thank you, thank you. Like I said, stage 1, I'm still looking, for stage 2, but yeah, it took a while. Well, because for those that know my story, I've been in and out, for various reasons, between life and work and everything, and I'm very happy that my channel has, gotten to the point where I think people I'm able to share things. I see that's what part of the reason why I like to do it. I always say if even one person gets something out of it, and the fact that so many other people have and have been supporting my channel for this long, I just really really appreciate it. It's just really nice. So I hope I make everyone's day a little bit nicer. But to go to your point about Narnia, I think a lot of us started off with Narnia just because it is a kid's book and it is kids fantasy. And I'm sure that somewhere Tolkien would be flipping in his grave if we try to compare the two, because I know that he was a little bit like, okay, C.S. Lewis, you're doing your thing, but mine is better. He's for
it's
lack of
it's
a better word.
It's always funny because when you look at the two worlds, like the two world maps, Narnia world map and Lord of the Rings world map,
Mhm,
the I always found I just found it very ironic. Especially after learning later that they were best friends. They, of course, very, very much hung out with each other and shared ideas and were very close. It's very funny because you talk about Lord of the Rings is set in has more of an Eastern map look, and then you have Narnia is more of a Western map look. And so whenever you have the white gates, especially at the end of the movies, because I'm not well versed in Lord of the Rings. Let's put it that way. I've told you backstage I can't like repeat, put quotes to things or what have you. So I have to continuously reread things to be able to let it stick to my head. But especially through the gates going to the west, I'm like, oh, he's going to the childlike innocence. They're going back to the childlike innocence of Narnia. That's what I thought in my brain at the time.
it's like, no, it's a
I know
it's another way of saying the great beyond.
well, it's really funny when with two friends who have such, wonderful imaginations and being able to give us these different worlds, how if you look at those maps, um, how it kind of to me, it kind of fits in a way because it's like
Mhm,
Narnia is childlike and innocence, whereas when you're going to the West, so to speak, for Lord of the Rings, you're going back to a heavenly place, which is childlike innocence again.
mhm.
So I just find that very ironic. I'm like, two best friends did this and they didn't realize it, maybe. So,
Yeah. Well, I do know that what was it that
not that they're in the same world, y'all. It's just something that I thought of when I was much younger. And I was just like, this is interesting.
yeah. Yes. And what was it that C.S. Lewis kinda lost it, or was it the other way? Was it Tolkien? Because it was Numenor, I think it was. One of them used the word Numenor, and the other one got pissed off. I remember something like that because even though they were friends, they had egos. They were human,
They had
and
pride in their work, yes.
yeah, and they did have a bit of a fundamental disagreement about the nature of uh, fantasy world building, use of allegory, and then eventually there were some personal disagreements that toward the end of their lives, that they didn't quite see eye to eye and kind of drifted apart. But you could always tell that they did have the fondness for each other, and Tolkien was very upset and quite devastated when um, C.S. Lewis passed away.
Well, it's kind of like it's in a way they both challenged each other without realizing it too
Mhm.
much.
Good point.
They probably challenged each other where, C.S. Lewis is coming from his stories while it have, excuse me, a childlike innocence, he didn't treat his children audience
Hmm.
with an attitude of, well, you're a child.
Hmm.
He gave that breadth of space of the child being able to use their imagination to live through that world and grow up in that through that world, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, and then you have something like Lord of the Rings, which is very interesting because Tolkien comes from having dealt with war and life and
Hmm.
tragedy and changing nations and evil, lurking in the shadows all the time and living in the trenches of not knowing if you're going to survive and you're going to have to pick each other up next to your fellow man. It's a different outlook on life, but they come from very similar backgrounds and situations where you have to be able to meet your fear and face it.
Hmm.
So that's what I love. It's so funny because when I read Narnia and then I watched the Peter Jackson movies, I'm like, I was so and like just completely enthralled by it that I got the trilogy in the book in a paperback book because we didn't necessarily have so much money back in the
Hmm.
day. Um, but it has a picture of Gandalf from the movie. Gosh, why am I blanking out on his name? I hate this. When I'm on a live stream, I blank out on names.
Ian McKellen,
Thank
McKellen.
you. Yes. And he's on the cover there, and it's there's definitely a lot of love with that paperback book because I've had to tape that spine so much.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting, that because my experience was, of course, I'd read the books, and so
Mhm.
when the trilogy came out, well, when they said they were going to be making it, we were just me and my friends, we were besides ourselves, just couldn't wait to see it. And when the first preview came out, where the teaser rather, and it just ended with it showing the fellowship, walking over the mountain, and it said Fellowship of the Ring, where, Two Towers, Return of the King. So it was interesting. Now, of course, because of that, I do have some bones to pick with Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
A few, especially ones to do with Faramir, the things that happened in the Two Towers. But I think that we've ultimately forgive it because in of themselves, those movies are very well done, and his intentions were not something that was, like, for example, outside of the fantasy world or outside of
It wasn't
Tolkien's
with
intentions.
he didn't do it with malice. He did it with love. He loved and respected Tolkien's story.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other places, like now, modern fiction, so to
Hmm.
speak, doesn't seem to want to respect what came before.
Hmm.
They want to completely and utterly disrespect even the original creator who can no longer speak for himself.
Yeah.
So whereas, at least with somebody like Peter Jackson, he had Christopher Lee, Sir
Hmm.
Christopher Lee with him that'd be like, "Yo, I've met Tolkien." So,
Hmm.
uh
Yes. Oh gosh, yeah. Well, and Tom Shippey, well, all of them, and And I just love the way they were trying to rewrite history with I think we're referring to things like the Rings of Power and some of what these so-called scholars are doing. It's like, "Listen, I was there."
I was there where, when it was written, witch.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Or
like
when, they
Aslan.
tried to say that everyone was bullying E. McKellen, especially when they said people in the church were, and it's like, "Hey,
N
I was there. We were beside ourselves worshiping at the altar of Ian McClellan. We didn't care who he was sleeping with, in the church,
no
Catholics.
no
We were not bullying him. We were not saying anything. We all adored him because we're all
nobody
grown-ups."
talked about that back in the day, and if they were, it was in very small minority online groupings of people that it wasn't really that weren't really relevant to the situation.
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
random. It was like
yeah,
maybe 2 people. It's kind of like I think what happens nowadays, it's almost like one person says something and then they're like, "Oh, good, now we have an example," and they all use the same one example, and I'm like sometimes you even wonder if these are, ringers out there because, it's like, "Someone go out there and say something racist so that we can use that as part of our publicity," because it seems like they're waiting for it.
it's funny because, the reason why I picked this topic of fiction,
Mhm,
past, present, and future, um, you know, Narnia and Lord of the Rings really impacted me. I mean, there are multiple things that impacted me in my childhood, but Narnia and Lord of the Rings were very prominent in my life.
mhm,
Narnia definitely in my childhood. Lord of the Rings definitely when I was a preteen going into going into high school and then college and everything else.
mhm.
Star Wars, I grew up with Star Wars as a little girl. So that is, I would say past fiction. I'm not saying that disrespectfully. I'm just
Yeah.
saying fiction or stories or entertainment that came before that is really that are very well respected. Um, but it's hard looking at the present now with fiction and not just um co-opting what came before, but also the creation of present day storytelling that it's very stunted emotionally with no experience, no human they talk about emotion, but they don't understand what human emotion is when somebody is
Mhm,
met with a tragedy or met with a challenge or a difficult situation. They act very chat GBT like. So
mhm,
it's very it's not met, with any kind of love or real, passion for it. I mean, you look back on even, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That is such a beautiful story. And it's funny when you talk about because I didn't originally grow up with uh, the old Narnia movies that came out in the, I think it was at the 80s or something like that. I know my cousins loved those movies, but I liked the Disney version of
mhm.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because one of my favorite scenes in that entire movie is when, Aslan and gosh, I am blanking out on it's Peter, Lucy, Susan,
Edmund.
Edmund, thank you, Edmund, and that the scene where Aslan and Edmund are having a quote unquote confession.
Oh, yes,
I
yes, yes.
loved that scene so much. I mean, I don't know if it's there in the other movies, but that scene just was just gosh, it was just as a younger kid,
Mhm.
preteen or whatever, it still sticks that scene still sticks in my brain. It is
Yes.
such a well done movie. I mean, I know it probably has its flaws, but
Yeah.
I felt like they gave it the intended respect it deserved.
Yes, and they didn't water down the Christianity aspects of
Exa
it.
exactly. I loved it, and it's oh
Mhm.
gosh, when Aslan's going to the stone and oh my god.
Oh.
Oh gosh, it was so good.
Yeah, it was his own Via Dolorosa. I bawled, and I love the music from it, and yes, I do understand the flaws, but I think that what we're seeing happening nowadays makes us look back on some of those movies and be like, "Oh my gosh, they're
We had it
master."
good. We had it
We
good.
had it so good when all we could do is complain about maybe some things that they added. Just really fast, I want to get I want to
Cool.
get this super chat here.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Scott Westbrook, for $5. Just because I don't get around very often while you're live. Oh well, thank you, and I'm just happy you're here. Or if you listen on the replay, and thank you for the $5 and for supporting the channel. And that is an adorable kitty cat. So yeah, thank you very much. Um, it, the and even Prince Caspian, which they really
Oh, yeah, they
they
they definitely darkened that up, in
yeah.
my opinion. I mean, but one of my favorite things, in that movie, I forget the actor's name, but he I remember him because I was just obsessed with those movies back in the day.
Mhm.
I mean, not Prince when I saw Prince Caspian, I liked it, but other people around me didn't like it. I'm like, am I thinking weird or
Mhm.
wrong with this? Even though I've read the books and I didn't mind some things to it. Um, the what was it? I loved the actor who played Prince Caspian.
Oh,
He
yeah.
specifically chose to have that kind of accent because he wanted to give Prince Caspian like just a different characteristic.
Mhm.
And he said he learned from listening to The Princess Bride, Inigo Montoya a lot to be able to
Oh,
do that. And I was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's another great movie." So
yes. Well, and yeah, I didn't mind that they of course, they aged him up, and I think that that made a lot of sense cinematically. I think the only part that is universally hated was an attempt to make a weird love romance with Suitcase
yeah, that yeah.
And and I think that they cut out a good deal of it because everyone was just like, "Why?" You know, "What's going on with that?" But yeah, I agree with you that I don't mind, and, a little bit while back, Jacob said, "Defend Narnia." Yes, because I'm a little concerned with what I'm hearing about some plans for Narnia.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is definitely going to be on my radar in the future to keep an eye on. Other people are far more affluent and knowledgeable in Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings is far more has far more depth to it. Is with all the books and everything. But Narnia is just one set of a box set of books that
Mhm.
I can reread over and over again, and I will be definitely keeping an eye on that in the future. I mean, speaking about like the future and everything with fiction and storytelling and just, we're looking even with like video games with storytelling like that. You have I have a we're watching like Rings of Power, we're watching
Mhm.
Narnia, we're watching all of these things that people don't appreciate anymore with or don't even give respect to the original creators who can't even speak for themselves.
Mhm.
Um, and they crap all over them. And it's just astounding to me how disrespectful people are towards, regardless of what part or timeline they were in history, regardless of the situation. It gives nobody any right to judge them for their time.
No.
I mean, it's
Well,
just it's just like anybody at any time. I mean, everybody throughout human history, everybody has had their struggles, have had their grievances, and at this point, why are you like why are people so just obsessed about being miserable all the time and
yeah.
stop using other people who especially who are dead, who can't even fend for themselves.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis called it chronological snobbery too. The idea that because we're further along in history that we're somehow better than everybody else. It's like
It's
maybe we need to listen to some of those old people. And while there are obviously some good progress, there's been progress that's been made that needed to be happen. Don't throw that baby out of the bathwater.
Yeah, and it's just because our previous generations and throughout human history, everybody's been flawed, but we've been
Mhm.
able to properly grow as humanity, realizing what's right and what's wrong. And but we can't completely judge on what came before because people operated in those circumstances the way they thought was okay.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying a lot of things are okay. It's just they didn't know any better. How can you judge somebody based on that? You
Yeah.
can't do that.
Well, what drives me insane, someone actually said this about the little flower. It was even a rather so-called progressive nun. She said, "Well, if Therese of Lisieux, Teresa Martin, had lived today, well, she would have thought like us." And I was like,
No.
then obviously you've not read her, but but they try to project it on it. It's like, well, she would have. She would have if she'd have
Well, it's
lived
just like the
today.
projection of Saint Joan of Arc,
Oh gosh,
all the
yeah.
time that she's always this,
Feminist,
yeah, some sort of, martyrdom for,
women's
modern,
yeah,
progressive, LGBTQ, whatever you wanna say
man
stuff.
hating.
Yeah, man-hating stuff, and I'm like,
No.
"No, I don't think she would actually like any of you."
She wouldn't like any of you, yeah, but actually, most saints probably wouldn't like any of us, to be honest, but she'd be like, "What is wrong with you?"
I mean,
And, like, the reason why Joan of Arc dressed the way she was because that's what you do when you fight. That's what was so silly about the Rings of Power. It just killed me with the way they're showing Galadriel with her hair blowing in the wind while she's charging into battle. I'm like, "Girl, you're dead. All they have to do is reach out and grab your hair to knock you off the horse." It's
my mom always said whenever she was in trouble and my grandmother would go after her around, like, the dining room table, that's, like, the reason why she has her hair up in a her mother had her hair up in a ponytail so she could grab it
yeah,
when she was in trouble.
yeah. I mean, I can't even play like the violin without tying back my hair because it'll get in the way. Uh, and I think that who was it back here? I had it up here. Said like, what do we think about this Narnia thing? I think we kind of did address it. He asked the question right after we were talking about it. Yeah, about worrying about the Narnia with the Barbie movie. This is Fletcher Williams, director. What do you get, Lady Saints? Yeah, I think we said that. Well, I'm not entirely sure because I have mixed feelings about was it Greta
Greta
whatever?
Gerwig.
Yes, because she I've seen The Little Women, which actually wasn't as bad as people thought it was gonna be. I think that it was marketed one way and turned out to be actually quite a fair adaptation of the work, and I haven't seen Barbie yet. I'm actually gonna be seeing it tomorrow. I was on Nina Infinity's on Sunday night with Script Doctor, and they said enough things, especially Script Doctor, who, if anyone's familiar with him, he knows cinema very well. He's a writer, a a real writer. He's a script doctor, and made me think I need to see this movie for myself because at first I was hearing maybe it was a horrible, horrible, horrible movie, and then I was hearing other aspects. So I'm going to judge it myself, and then I might be able to answer a little better about how concerned I am with her doing Narnia. I don't know if I'm so much more concerned about what she's been saying as what other people have been saying. I've been seeing a lot of rumbles around from some of the shills and the shill media saying they need to dumb down the Christianity, even change the ending. And I actually saw someone try to say that Aslan isn't supposed to be Jesus. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it is. That's one of the things that makes makes the
Aslan is literally
literally
the
Jesus.
embodiment of Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you could argue about Lord of the Rings, and I have watched Catholic explaining Lord of the Rings for that part, but there is no doubt there is a one-to-one allegory, if ever there was one. I mean, he literally dies and comes back to life. The table breaks in two, just like with Jesus,
Yeah,
and
the earth has an earthquake
yeah,
because
an
it breaks.
earthquake.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
and
there's a little confession going on.
yeah, they have confession for crying out loud. And a lot of people don't know this about C.S. Lewis. He was actually a very, very high church Anglo Catholic, which is sometimes people call it Catholic light, but it, it's he had a lot of things that people would now only associate with the faith, like things like, he believed in auricular confession, for example, and things like purgatory and the like, very, very high church. So that's why we were able to recognize it, I think, so well. He is Lion Jesus, yes. Yeah, yes, right. Yeah, he's a script doctor. It is in the name. He's the Lion of Judah. Yeah, that's the other thing. He's a lion in the Bible. And C.S. Lewis even says, when I found a letter where as he was saying to a little girl, it's like, well, I won't tell you if he's who he is, but he comes around when Father Christmas arrives. He does this, he does that. It's like, so you tell me who he is. And even and was it Aslan says, in your world, I'm known by a different name. It's like, really?
Oh yeah, I love that because it's true. Because he is the literal symbolic meaning of Christ and God and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and
So
and the emperor across the sea is God the Father.
yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I know Fletcher Williams brought up the Barbie thing, and I know other people have. For me, I didn't like the movie at all.
Mhm.
I saw it completely and utterly different from other people. So I am very worried with Narnia, and
Mhm.
especially with being a modern world that we are in, and the way that studios have to abide by certain. I'm not going to say what they are, but certain quote unquote um, master puppet guidelines. Let's just put it that way. I'm a
Yeah.
little concerned because especially since we have already have a set precedent with Amazon's Rings of Power.
Mhm.
So, other people can have different aspects or different opinions or different approaches to things. To me, I did not care for the movie. I did not see that the way that some others saw it. The Barbie movie itself. Um, I didn't see it from the perspective of an 8-year-old child. I saw it from the perspective of an adult feminist who can't get over herself and has severe issues projecting on Barbie.
Hmm.
That's how I saw it. And in the end, it wasn't really an 8-year-old child to begin with. It was actually an adult who that's the yeah. So I mean, I can understand where people's perspective are coming from with the way it began. Um, but I felt very disgusted by a lot of the overt messaging,
Mhm.
and I didn't think it was satire, and a radical feminists do not, put satire or parody themselves. They believe in their ideology for a reason, and they would never dunk on that. So and she has never called this a satire. She said that this is Paradise Lost is an influence for this movie. So
Hmm.
for me, you have to kind of take from what other. I can understand where people are coming from, but you also have to look at from where the showrunners are talking from as well. And she has not said this is a parody at all.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Like I said, I've heard so many different opinions.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward
And
to
honestly,
seeing it.
you see it for yourself.
Mhm.
And that was me too, because was hearing warning signs before I saw it, and I'm like, I wanted to see it for myself. And then I left the
Mhm.
theater like after the fact, um, utterly disgusted by it. So, but
Okay.
others left and they said that they enjoyed it. So it's just
Yeah.
it is
Well,
what it is, and I'm not, if you enjoy it, you enjoy it, but I don't see what others are seeing.
yeah.
So
Okay. Well, I think it's interesting what you said because
and
that.
I'm worried too because I know another good friend, another Catholic friend who he liked. Greta Gerwig also did the movie Lady Bird, and that was kind of a accidental pro-life movie. So
Oh.
apparently, I guess she likes to do accidental based things when she doesn't intend to. It's kind of one of those weird things like that,
Huh.
and you know they don't like to do those things accidentally. They're just so into their own ideology, they don't realize what they're doing. So,
Interesting. Maybe the
you
truth comes through despite what they're trying to do. Perhaps.
exactly. So they think that what's real and true and good is is evil to them. But see, they're so into showing that. And see,
Mhm.
that's what I don't think people quite understand with where people are when they are so entrenched in their ideology
Mhm.
is that they think that something like being pro-life is such an evil that they are just so willing to show it on screen, but then in the end, people root for that pro-life type person. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Well, and maybe that's even what happened with Little Women, like, they intended it to be something, but they just couldn't quite
They
ruin it.
couldn't help themselves. You
Yeah.
see what I mean?
Yeah,
So
fascinating. And just the fact that we're even talking about this, it is interesting, um, and I'm concerned, uh,
yeah.
because of
I'm
what did
concerned
her
because this is I mean, I know she did Little Women, but I'm concerned
Mhm.
because this is literally C.S. Lewis is his story of Narnia is literally a religious allegory.
Yeah,
And with today's modern era of entertainment, unfortunately, there is a very outward hatred towards Christianity.
yeah.
It's not something that's subtle like it's been in the past because you can pick up on those things in entertainment a lot. But now I would say in the last 15, 20 years, it's just been ramped up to the nth degree. So it's going to be interesting because I'm going to watch it very closely.
Well, and not just that, unlike Tolkien, even though Tolkien was an incredibly staunch Catholic and all that, he was not an apologist the way C.S. Lewis was. Because, like, I've read more of C.S. Lewis's apologetics works, like his nonfiction. He was a defender of the faith, a defender of Christianity. He would go
Mhm.
out and give lectures. He had bestsellers and all this, and his fiction was not necessarily apologetics, but he not only wrote a Christian allegory, he was a defender of the faith. So if they really try to mess with that, it's it's gonna be bad. It's interesting what you say about the last 15, 20 years because I recall even the '80s and the '90s, it
Mhm.
started with Catholicism, and I finally convinced my family 'cause, I'm the only Catholic, because at first they were like, "Well, yeah, there is some stuff we don't like about that." I said, "Yes, but they're starting with that. They're starting with" they were taking baby steps, and
Yep.
then said and then once they got that, then they moved to the next one, then they started moving into,
It's like a
uh
pushing of the envelope, just a little
yeah,
bit,
it's
just
like
enough to poke the bear a little bit more. Well, we can do a little bit more. We can do some more poking, and it's like, well, we just got to turn the other cheek, even though that's really what we should be doing. But at the same time, we should be standing our ground.
Yeah, that
So,
there's a difference between doing that. And, it started
yeah,
with things like, the '80s was all about, priestly celibacy, about priests cheating, on their vows, and everyone's like, "Well, yeah, we can understand that." I said, "Yeah, but ooh, there it's gonna move from there to this." And finally, people have finally acknowledged the slippery slope, and now it's like, "Well, hey," a lot of people are like, "Well, it's just that. It's just, well, yeah, no one believes in priestly celibacy, and then it was marriage, and then it was this, and then it was burned crosses, and now we've got
well,
this
and
insanity."
it's not even it's not just in the public schools. It's also in the Catholic schools too. I remember in high school because I went to an all girls Catholic high
Mhm.
school. I
Oh
chose
yeah,
that because I didn't want to go to public school. Period. Um, and mainly because I was an awkward kid and I was always not really accepted a lot of places, but and always trying to fit in somewhere. But at the same time, I remember having this. I think it was my sophomore year. There was a teacher teaching theology,
oh
and
boy.
she was kind of advocating for marriage of priests, and I stood up in class and I stood up against her.
Oh, and I bet you she never forgave you either.
It wasn't really a pleasant experience, I
Mm-mm.
think, for everybody around because I was like, "No, you're incorrect on that one," and I said the reasoning why. Now, of course, I don't quite recall because it's kind of it's been a little
Mhm.
it's been a hot minute, but at the same time, I said, "No, you're incorrect with that. Like, if you're teaching theology, you shouldn't be speaking for that on behalf of Catholicism because it's not in the Catechism of the Catholic Church."
Yeah.
So I I was that child.
Okay, yeah. Well, and when you said "she," I also understood it because a lot of it's been infiltrated. And stay tuned for my Catholic thing because I'm going to actually be Catholic explaining some of that this Sunday on Holy Orders. But though I do want to say something that technically, remember, there can be married priests, and I know many
Right.
married
If
priests.
they were what is
If
it?
they
They're
if they were already married, yes, and
yes,
under certain circumstances. So it's not that we're objectively against married priests, but that it is
correct.
celibacy is a good and why it is, and this whole idea that that would suddenly solve everything. Well, for one thing, we can go into the statistics, and I will on Sunday. So tune in. But it's like,
I think this will
listen,
be interesting.
it's who's there's no proof that marriage cures crime. And that's all I'll say when I say crime. You know what I
But yeah,
mean?
because marriage doesn't cure. Well, for some people out there, marriage doesn't seem to cure the needs of the flesh in some instances. So how do you explain marriage curing the priest problem at the same
Mhm.
time? You know what I mean? It's
Eh,
like
well, exactly. Or, they're like, "Well, yeah, never." Suddenly, there goes my channel demonetized.
I
But
know. I'm
but I mean,
sorry.
we don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to. We're dancing around the word, but we know that.
Yes,
So, but yeah, and it's
that's
not
why
only.
that's why I said it the way I said it.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just in Catholic schools, it's in Christian school. I've been around. I've been on both sides of the Tiber, and when I say it, I just like to warn people that if you're just going to sit around and bash public schools, you're fooling yourselves. You need to be uh, the wolves are getting at the sheep directly.
Mhm.
And so sometimes people think, oh, I'll put my kid in a private school, put him in a Christian school, put him in a Catholic school. No. I mean, do it, but you got to be just as vigilant because predators, and when I say predators, I'm not necessarily talking about those kind of predators. I'm talking about people that are trying to undermine the very fundamentals of morality and Christianity and all of that. They are actually actively trying to get into positions of power within the schools and within the church and the churches because that's how you change things. This is a good point that Jacob Ironside says. For the longest time, murder mysteries, if there's a minister pastor, they're either the murderer or the town drunk. Yeah. Or they
Yep.
beat their wife beaters. That's the other thing, right? They're
Yep.
abusers. They beat their children, they beat their wives. Um, Hello, Daniel. Mags won't tolerate that kind of nonsense. No,
Hey,
I now
Daniel.
where I got into trouble, well, not into trouble. I didn't care. It was with a priest. It was about female priests. Now, female priests, no way. Yeah,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
absolutely no way. And so I just gave a priest hell about that because he was going to preach about it from the pulpit, and I was a cantor, and I said, Father, you do that, I'm going to go right up and yank you out by your collar like a sad vaudeville act. And I meant it. It was like, you're not gonna it's like, get out of here.
We have
Um,
to be guardians of our own faith, even because we don't know. Because even with just the church as an institution is made up of people, and people
mhm,
are flawed, and so you have to keep
yeah,
an eye on those people who are wolves in sheep's clothing,
mhm,
regardless of whether they wear the collar or not. And
mhm,
so this is this.
mhm,
I understand people have had their frustrate because I know people in my own life who've
mhm,
had their dealings with horrible situations. Let's just put it that way.
mhm,
Within the church itself.
yeah,
Um, and you can't take away those feelings from them because they were not dealt with a lot of kindness. Let's put it that
mhm.
way. So it's
Yeah,
so it's kind of one of those things where you have to look at it from you can't tell them how to feel.
mhm,
Unfor It's
yeah,
not unfortunately, it's more like it's unfortunate because they they can't forgive what happened.
yeah,
So then now, now with this mindset, there are plenty of people out there who have a very severe hatred towards Christianity. And you
mhm,
see that in entertainment in general. And then it's not very subtle at all.
mm,
You can sense it, and I know people will go, "Well, it's a majority religion. Of course, it can be made fun of." I'm like, "Well, then, if that's the case, everything should be made fun of and
yeah,
pointed out." But no, it doesn't
Yeah, well,
matter.
no, the
It's
one
because
that
it's a blanket statement of it's almost like an emotional blackmail situation where it's, "Oh, well, you're the majority of religion." Like, "Well, have you looked at the statistics lately?"
yeah. Well, yeah, but and we all know that, there's a reason for that, and that's why we're concerned about Narnia. These are really great points here. Daniel, I try not to make anyone feel like they're a bad Catholic. I'm a bad Catholic, trust me.
I'm a
I
bad Catholic.
we're all bad Catholics. Anyone that says that actually, you know who you need to be afraid of? Is someone who says they're a good Catholic.
Oh,
Because
no.
good Catholic, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
some very prominent quote unquote good Catholics because that's not part of our vocabulary. Because one thing that we have, we're like Alcoholics Anonymous. We are not allowed to make excuses for our own behavior. We are not allowed to F around. And I don't know if you've ever, well, yeah, have you ever been to AA? No. But if you've been to AA, trust me, they will not. That's why AA works because they will not let you bullshit. They won't let you be a
They'll
victim.
call
It's like
you out.
they'll
Yeah.
call, yeah, yeah, and because so it's like, yeah, so I will be the first to say that yes, I drop f bombs, but I'll tell you what, I'm working on it. I'm really working on it, but I've gotten rid of so many other vices that have been really hard. This is the one vice I have left, and and that's I'm working on it. I try to be a better person.
It's
Um,
like picking and choosing your battles, which ones you really want to tackle that's probably far more morally impactful on the soul than anything else.
Exactly. Though of course the Lord's name in vain is something different. Hollywood Pop says, or sorry, Pop says, Hollywood people can't religion any better than they can be good dads. That's
Exactly.
true. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. See, they're against fatherhood in general.
And
Uh,
masculinity.
and masculinity. Yeah, they're not just erasing women, they're erasing men. The one exception, and I think this is why it's been so popular, is Manifest, the TV show. You can see it now on Netflix. Manifest, the main character, Ben Stone, is a man. He's a family man. He's married, and he is a good, strong man, and he remains the hero throughout the entire series. So, if you want to see a good example of a man, Manifest does it, and he's a believer. And I couldn't believe it. Now they had some of the other stuff in there, but since it was like New York, it was naturally organic that there were other characters maybe that had different things, but they had a white man being the hero, married, family, God, and did the right thing and was a hero to his children. So if you want to see something that's edifying toward fathers, watch Manifest.
And that's that's what's so sad is that, it makes you wonder if all these people, especially all these Hollywood types. I mean, I'm not saying this to be judgmental. I'm just saying this out of speculation. Are all of
Mhm.
these people having like mommy and daddy issues? That's what it seems
Yes,
like. Because
I s
they're almost projecting their issues
yeah.
onto the entertainment, and then you're sitting there in an audience, and you're just kinda like, "Why do I feel like I'm being yelled at?" Or something.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Well, and I'll tell you, and often you will find out. I remember,
What was
Madonna.
the name of the show again? I'm sorry, Teresa, I'm trying
Oh,
to
the
trying to
good
grab
one,
a piece of paper here.
Manifest.
Manifest.
It had a good ending. It had a good ending. They landed the ending. I bawled throughout the whole thing, but yeah, Manifest is great. It's starring, I call
Is
him
it
Prince Charming.
Netflix?
It is Netflix, yes.
Okay.
It was on NBC, and then, like, a bunch of losers, they canceled it, but it's, got Josh Dallas, who is the star of Once Upon a Time, and he
Oh!
is amazing. Oh,
Oh, yeah, Josh Dallas. Ooh,
oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, we love
Oh.
him.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's worth it for that. Come on, man. Yeah, okay, thank you. Gosh, there's so many. I and for those of you that, yeah, when I flash you up, I'm waving at you because I can't wave because I'm not on camera, obviously. I'm such a bad. Oh dear, oh dear.
There we
Hello,
go, we're getting
Biggles. Yeah, all
all the
right.
Catholic
Well,
jokes.
um, um, yeah, hold it against the individuals. Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, like I said, we're human, and I think that we need to show each other grace, and it's it's uh it's just hard.
It's
It
also
life
it's humbling and humility and compassion for it's I always talk like this, and I'm not perfect at it either because I'm a I'm very much Irish and Italian and German and
Mhm.
Polish, and so I have very strong opinions on things. Um, but it's you have to almost you have to meet them at their ground level. I
Mhm.
mean, we may know that this is not right, but we have to meet everybody at their level to be able to meet in between and have an actual human to human conversation. You can't just talk to them from above. That just doesn't work at all.
Mhm.
And that's where you come from a place of compassion and understanding. And a lot of times people are more than willing to open up to you in that manner.
Mhm.
Better if you come from that perspective. Now, do I practice this a lot? No, because I fail. But it's a matter of trying to recognize it when it does happen. And that seems to work for me when I do recognize it. Um,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
you come from understanding that you are also a flawed human being.
Yeah, and that's also where it comes with, judge not lest, you shall be judged, which is sometimes it is, misused, but, yeah, we're all on our own journey too. Thank you, Daniel, for the $5 super chat. Um,
Sorry, this has turned into a church talk.
hey, you're in charge. This is a topic, and well, listen, when you talk about the Lord of the Rings and Narnia, I mean,
Yeah.
I get pushback sometimes. I was like, Tolkien said it's a Catholic work, though unconsciously at first, and then consciously he put Catholicism in there, but not as an allegory, as applicability. And Narnia is hitting you over the head,
Oh yeah, and
Christianity.
C.S. Lewis is not apologetic of it at all.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I know, and a lot of people misunderstand because they think that because he said he hated allegory, that no, it's not Catholic because he hated allegory. It's like no, that's what's different. The, he did not make it an allegory for the Catholic faith, but that's a whole other ball game. I'm just saying you're gonna have religion, and you can though enjoy the Narnia and Lord of the Rings without even knowing any of that. It because they're just darn right good stories. But Daniel says, thank you again. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I want to hear both you ladies' opinion on if I am right to be mad at the church for not having kneelers and people not shaking hands for peace. Two-part question. Okay. Are you does your church not have kneelers at Magitek? I mine have kneelers.
I mean, I go to whatever church I have availability for.
Hmm.
I know it sounds really selfish sounding, but I make my Sunday obligation, but if the church does not have kneelers, I kneeled on the ground. I don't care if it has carpet, I don't care if it has tile or it's
Hmm.
hardwood floor, I still kneel.
Darn right.
I just think of it as um giving up something, and maybe hopefully the church, that particular parish, may change its mind. And maybe there's a reason why I needed to go to this church anyway, depending on the circumstances, because God needed me to kneel on the floor. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to take it in stride. I know when my family and I travel for vacation, we're not always going to be able to go to the quote unquote perfect church, because um, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
Um, so you have to take everything in stride. And sometimes there are churches that don't have kneelers. Unfortunately, I think
Mhm.
all churches should have kneelers. I don't care what people say. But if they don't have kneelers, kneel on the floor. And I do it. And I know people will be like, well, you're young and blah, blah, blah. It still hurts my knees.
Mhm.
I'm not as it's still, I've ridden horses, I have done things, and my body is not necessarily as young as my age says it is. So, it's just one of those things where you just have to give it up. So,
Yeah, offer it up. Yeah, well, think about it. At the name of Jesus, every knee shall bend, and
yes.
fall on your knees and
There's
hear
a lot
those
of G
angel voices. I mean, it's like that's what we say. The angels and archangels. I mean, look at they're falling down on their faces in the book of Revelation, and it's like, yeah, get on your knees for crying out loud. This is Jesus, you losers.
and
And
if other people don't, if everybody else doesn't kneel and you're the only one that kneels, who cares?
All
Maybe
right.
you might be able to change some hearts if you stay consistent and you're not doing it for show.
Mhm.
So I know, gosh, I've had arguments in my college years
Oh
of
gosh, yeah, I'm so glad I'm not
talking
in
to
college
people
anymore.
who seemingly are self-righteous, but then they still end up doing stupid shit all the time. Excuse me for saying
Yeah,
it like
no,
that.
yeah, yeah, we're
You know,
here talking about Jesus. Yeah, this is
but
a church hour. This is church chat.
exactly. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, so you're being showy, but then you're actually not being serious about it. Anyway, so it's kind of one of those things where you do it for yourself, for your soul. And if other people see your example, maybe you might be able to change hearts, because God has proven in the Bible that he has been able to change the hearts of man, through good actions of others. Um, and just take it in full stride. I know it's sad because I there are plenty of churches in my area who don't have kneelers,
Wow.
unfortunately. So it's kind of one of those things where you just you're doing it for your soul. You're not doing it for anybody else. You're not doing it for the show or whatever. You're doing it because this is what real
It's
reverence
Jesus.
is.
You're doing
Yeah,
it for Jesus, for crying out
you're in
loud.
the presence of Jesus, and so you need to be far more reverent and take care of your soul first,
Yeah.
before you even think about others. And then that's another thing too. I know you get mad, and all that kinds, and I can get mad and whatever, but then I'm starting to think about others, and I'm starting to be selfish here. I need to focus on Christ, and
Yeah.
instead of being mad and focusing on other people not doing what they should be doing.
Yeah. And
Um,
not just that, understand that they're
and
the
I
ones
know it
being
sounds
disobedient.
hard, but
Yeah.
it's a very it's a fight. It's an inner fight.
Yeah.
Any
Well, and again, I think it depends on the leadership of the bishop. But you see, they're the ones being disobedient, not you. I mean, we are Latin Rite Catholic. If you're in a Latin Rite Catholic church, now there's other ones that do not, But if you're in an Eastern church or something, it's like okay, that's something totally different. But they're the ones being disrespectful, not you. And
Yeah.
I don't like it that it puts in them position. I guess I'm just very blessed that my bishop is pretty firm. I mean, there's kneelers in every single church, and it's not even a question. Now, I want to go to the second part of this because this is a little bit of a different part, and people not shaking hands for peace. Now, I have something to say about that, but well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and say something about that first. Actually, the shaking hands for peace is not required. It is not required. Actually, you don't even have to do a sign of peace. It is an option in the
Mhm.
mass, and it is if the deacon or the priest does offer you to give a sign of peace, the sign of peace is a sign of peace. And so it can be like sometimes I hate shaking hands, and there's a reason why, because shaking hands is something that you do in real life. You shake hands, but what do you do in church? You make a little sign of the cross at people, or and since COVID, people started doing it, and people have not returned to shaking hands because I think it's more spiritual. Or you do the sign of peace, or like a blessing sign, like to people around you, like not a priest blessing, obviously, but that it's actually a very reverent, and I think it takes away from turning it into this big hug fest and handshaking fest. Uh, so I'm all in favor of not shaking hands during the sign of peace, and I think we also need to be respectful of people. Like I have really immunocompromised people in my family that I'm caregiving for, and I'm not shaking hands with a whole bunch of people too. I don't drink from the chalice for the same reason. It's like because I'm not going to go back and kill my mother, you know. So that's my thinking on that. I don't know if you had a comment,
Well,
Mags.
I participate. It's again, I guess I've lived in multiple different places of different. It's still Catholic, but it's different churches and different
Hmm.
dioceses and everything else, and it's the culture of that particular parish as well, if you think about it.
Hmm.
Um, and I've gone to high Latin masses, and I've gone to very not even Novus Ordo type masses because
Hmm.
of circumstances. It's kind of one of those things, and not by choice. It's more like, well, I gotta fulfill my Sunday obligations is all we have. Um, so me personally, I think I don't really mind the shaking of the peace, but it's also up to the culture of the parish to really monitor themselves.
Mhm.
Some parishes tend to take it into a sending out the peace signs all across the way and just being like high-fiving and air-fiving in the air and all this other stuff when you should be focusing on Christ in front of you. It can turn into a very me, 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 thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really are missing the community aspect of church, it's not appropriate during mass, but it's appropriate once it's concluded and you can congregate outside of mass and outside of the church itself, during festivities or like, little brunch sessions afterwards or what have
Mhm.
you, where it allows for a community of the church itself.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not, yeah, it's not
it's
within the liturgy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's complicated because I've been to masses where the community, the culture of the church itself, that particular parish, they're very respectful during the shaking of the hands of peace,
Mhm.
um, and respectful towards one another. And then I've been to other parishes where it's like literally a frat party type situation. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where for me, if I'm by myself, and especially if I don't know everybody around me, I'm just gonna nod and say peace be with you and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not gonna go out of my way to tackle somebody or
Yeah.
something, you know?
Exactly. No, that makes sense. Well, and also keep in mind, remember, it is an option. I've been at parishes that don't even have it, and it's good because
Yes.
again, yeah. So because of where it is in the liturgy, and understand that, yeah, we're talking about the community aspect of it. It's also at the beginning, and where there's community is an aspect of the church family, but it is not the highlight of our worship. The highlight of our worship is the celebration of the Eucharist and receiving of communion, and then the other stuff comes later. And I think that's sometimes where, having been a Protestant and now being a Catholic, is Protestantism is very community. Since there's not the Eucharist, that those other aspects of it are more important, for example. But for us, we have it. We just don't have it within the liturgy. And thank you, Pops, for the $5.01 super chat. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see everyone here, and thank you for supporting the channel. High fives for peace. Well, there you go. There you go. Okay, and we've had lots of comments here. And I do think, you know what? If you like this conversation, we've got Catholic splaining on Sundays, and yes, let's go. So we're gonna go there. Thank you for everyone. I do see your comments. I'm gonna see move through here, and um, I want us to go on. Excuse me. A little bit back to the Lord of the Rings and Narnia.
I know.
Well, it's okay. I mean, we went, we welcome digressions here at Miss Martin Muses, because, well, it's relevant because, listen, if we're going to talk about religion, if we're going to talk about Narnia, these are all aspects of it, and these were things that were very important to Tolkien. Well, Tolkien had some darned strong
He
opinions
Oh, yes.
about it. And so did C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis was a very liturgical person as well. Again, I told you he is a high church. He was a very, very high church Anglican. But as far as, Lord of the Rings and Narnia, talking from the past, before we move on to other things, is there anything else, Magitek Mags, that you wanted to maybe mention about these and how they all kind of fit together?
Well, I hope what my hope is that, maybe with the abominations that have been, created today as far as modern entertainment, that maybe people will wake up and actually read and revisit, the classics again, like Lord of the Rings and Narnia, and realize how rich they are in terms of relationship between the human body and the soul. Um, everybody talks about like, well, it's fantasy. Of course, it can be whatever it wants, but then they want to implement their reality into this fantasy, and it's like it doesn't work that way.
Mhm,
But what's really amazing about these pieces of work is that they are still. It's like wine. They still age because they still can touch the human soul. It never that the aspect of growing and being able to overcome evil is something that we all face on a daily basis. And that's something that we can all relate to. We don't need reality implemented into these stories. We
mhm,
need we need to be able to see these challenges and the way that they have been woven, um, almost like a spiritual out of body experience.
mhm,
Um, and I don't say that to be, worshiping them or anything. It's more they understand the human soul, and that need for improvement and growth. And modern Hollywood hates that.
mhm,
Um, so for me, um, definitely be guards of all of these works, probably, and definitely encourage people in the future if there's any fantasy or fiction writers that actually have these types of in a way it's a spiritual relationship between the body and the soul and something outward beyond itself. That's another thing too, is that a lot of these stories they talk about something it's almost like something beyond themselves, something a higher power, a higher situation where they talk about the flaws of the characters or what have you, but it's spiritual in a sense of knowing that it's not about you. You have to be selfless here, and especially in a world that demands you that you need to be selfless.
mhm,
Otherwise, the world will fall apart. Um, and in order to save the world and be able to keep it together is to be able to serve. I think that's something that's really missed in a lot of Hollywood storytelling is that
mhm,
you need to be able to serve others in order to save the world, so to speak.
mhm,
Now the activism is, I need to do this for myself to become my own martyr, and it doesn't work like that. So, I would love to see fantasy and fiction writers today and entertainment, doesn't matter if it's in video games or whatever, really take on that understanding and appreciation and try to pave the way to a better storytelling experience. Um,
mhm,
but definitely, um, it's a journey of transformation, which is Mag said, Hollywood tells you are perfect already. Exactly.
mhm.
And we are not perfect, not one bit.
No,
Um, and a lot of us are not born with a silver spoon in our mouths.
no.
So doesn't matter how old or young you are, not everybody comes from the LA or the New York City experience. Although I wouldn't want to live in those areas right
No,
now.
no. Well, and I've always said this was something when with Once Upon a Time when I was working with the fan site Once Upon a Fan, I was the editor in chief of that. Is stories are sacred. Stories are sacred, and there's a certain holiness about them. Not the same as like religion, but there's a reason why we all still read Homer, why we still all read Shakespeare, why we
Or the
still
Odyssey. Or the
yeah, the
Odyssey.
Odyssey. Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why these stories they're timeless for a reason, and because they somehow touch the very essence of what makes a person a human, what makes the human soul, what lifts us up. And so when you take a story that does that and you drag it through the mud, what you're actually doing is almost like desecrating something that makes of humanity.
Oh yeah. It's like
Hmm.
they hate humanity as a whole. They hate themselves. And it's in
Hmm.
so many ways it's a projection of their own issues on
Hmm.
everybody else. And like we always say, misery loves company. They want us, like us, live chat, everybody here,
Hmm.
to be brought down to their misery, to their level of depravity. And
Hmm.
it's disgusting. And it's like, why don't you pull yourself up by this bootstraps? No, they don't want that. They want you to be pulled down to their darkness.
Yeah.
Um Anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, I no, that that and everything, and, there's a sterility also to them. There's a reason why we the the modern mentality, it's sterile literally and
Mhm. It's
sterile
it's clinical almost.
yeah, yes. Well, yeah, when I say sterile, actually, I mean like as in sterility.
Oh,
Uh,
gotcha, gotcha.
there's a reason why the obsession, and it's not just with what we're seeing right now with some of the issues of that cause sterility, but it's been a major part of even the Yahtzees and all of that. They went fertility as they were against literal fertility as well as spiritual fertility. And when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about religion here now. I'm talking about the beauty and how do I say this? How do you say like fertility in a story, meaning symbolically, though? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
It's
Uh,
like a transformative
there
experience.
we go. Yes, and if something is sterile, if something is not fertile, if you will, then you cannot transform,
Yep.
and it
You
does
can't
it.
transform into a better being or a better thing, it's for lack of a better phrase.
Precisely, and I guess this would bring us a little bit. We talked a little bit about past, and I've been, of course, I still am reading the classics. I just got done rereading The Count of Monte Cristo, which is a
Oh gosh, yes.
masterpiece.
Oh gosh, I need to do a I need I have not
Oh,
reread that in such a long time, and I that is on my list of rereads.
yeah, I forgot how daggone good that is, and I had a little bit of a discussion on Twitter because, the 2002, remember, gives it kind of a happy ending where he gets
Mhm.
the girl and all that, and it's really his own son, and they ride off into the sunset after, some of the stuff, and it's like, no, no, the ending in the book, yeah, spoiler alert, it's like, no, because once he even says, "I tried to become like God. I was like Satan. I tried to become like God and mete out the vengeance of God. And all that happened was he just destroyed himself and destroyed others. And of course, he could not be with the girl after that, after the horrible things that happened, which I think is a far more potent message than, okay, I've got my revenge. It was bad. Now I'm going to be good. Now I get the girl. It's like, no, you didn't get the girl. You didn't get anything. He does actually find some happiness with somebody else, if you will, but he goes off. But ultimately, it's like there is no reward for what he did because what he did was just as bad as
Yep.
what was done to him. He became what he hated. Uh, so it was a very, very powerful book. So sorry, I just spoiled the ending for everybody. But I mean, come on, it was like 100 years, 150 years ago.
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, there's spoiler alert can be lifted at this point, right?
Aw, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's Fundamental Christian Fangirl Happy Noises. Yeah, we did. It's a great book. It's a fantastic book. And I understand though why Hollywood was like, no, we can't have that. Like, what kind of an awful ending is that? Uh, it's like, okay, fine, give him the girl. But the Richard Chamberlain one, he did not get the girl, which was a good
Mhm,
ending. Yeah,
mhm.
good stories can't be spoiled. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
That's actually very true. You can reread if you can reread the same story even though you already know the ending,
mhm.
that's a good story.
Yeah. And of course, there's a reason why things like the Hannah Monte Cristo, I mentioned, I think Shakespeare, of course, Charles Dickens, Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, even the very weird and wild Wuthering Heights. There was a point to that as well. Once you understand it, like as a kid, I was reading it. As a teenager, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with these people? And then you realize that's part of the point. But there's a reason. Even Brighthead Revisited.
Yep.
That's an
I was gonna
amazing
say
one.
that too. I was
Yeah,
like,
Brighthead
right then
Revisited. Oh, I hated that. You know how they did another adaptation of it like about 10 years ago and they changed the
yes.
ending. They had the nerve to change the ending. It's like that. The whole point of you missed the whole point of the story.
See, even then, y'all, in Hollywood's been doing this for a while. It's not since 2016. They've been doing this for a while. It's
Yeah.
just they didn't suddenly start doing these things.
No, no. But yeah, and some people are saying, well, is it really such a big deal? uh, I don't want to give away the ending because I really want. If you have not experienced, if you haven't read Brideshead Revisited, this one I will not give away the ending to because a lot of people have not read that. But also the TV show, the one with Jeremy Irons, you got to watch that one. It is such a powerful ending, and to change it. It's like, what's the point? Why did I just watch? There was no point to what we just did. And you know what I mean, what they changed, right? In the
Yes, I
movie?
remember I remember
Yeah.
when because I didn't see the movie, but I remember people being so upset about
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. It's like
It's kinda one of those things where it's like, especially for us, like, nerds that like to read the book before the movie,
yeah,
so
it's like, what just happened? Well, and I think that that's what what we felt again about the Rings of Power. So,
Oh,
those are
yeah.
some of the past and present though. Well, wait, before we talk about, well, does the past count about like 80s? Because there's some really great fiction. The actually this is present because it's Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms. They are actually still publishing. They are also the Wheel of Time just got done and obviously done posthumously, finished by Brandon Sanderson. But Brandon Sanderson is also one of the present fiction writers. Is there anything present that you would like to discuss or that you're maybe reading right now?
Well, I would consider so this might be, I would consider this present because
Hmm.
the author is still around, and in a way, it's still relevant to today.
Hmm.
But, I've been reading the original Thrawn trilogy,
Ooh.
Heir to the Empire series, so all of that stuff. So, that's been my present books right now, rediscovering because I didn't grow up with the EU. I didn't know honestly,
Oh no.
I didn't know it existed, because most of the time, I watched the OG trilogy over and over and over again on VHS. And I might have been kind of peripherally aware as I got older, but it wasn't one of those things that was in the household all the time. We
Hmm.
didn't exactly have the money to buy all the figures and all the comics, all the things, so to
Hmm.
speak. My brother at the time, I think in the late '90s, was in college. So my oldest brother. So it's kind of one of those things where the money went elsewhere
Hmm.
for the family.
Understood.
But anyway, so this is kind of my presence, my self-discovery, with reading things that people recommend for Star Wars in general. And so I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying it very much. I
Oh.
do like the gosh, I'm not really good at remembering names and such, but I'm on the second novel right now. So just
Dark Force Rising.
thank you. So but
Oh,
yes,
I love it. Well, you see, and I read those when they first came out. Yeah,
oh
this
yeah.
we didn't have. This was our
That
sequel.
was your literal sequel trilogy,
Yeah,
yes.
and Mara Jade. Oh gosh, just love Mara Jade, and
I love her.
and just
Okay, so
I want her forever.
I'm not I didn't I Heir to the Empire is really good,
Mhm,
but I like Dark Forces Rising better
mhm.
because it's far more characterization of Mara Jade going on and all that kind of stuff. So it's I like it.
Yeah, you got Talon Card, and so now you know why all of us lost our crap when in 2012. I forget what the exact date was. Whenever they said, "Well, we're
The
decanonizing," it
the
just
EU
didn't
books
exist.
books no longer exist. Yeah.
Yeah, the last 20 years of your life and hundreds of books that you've been reading, forget it. And of course, I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pretend no, Disney, screw you. These are the real stories because obviously they couldn't tell the story. And just wait till you read things like the Hand of Thrawn trilogy, duology rather.
Okay.
That Oh, and the New Jedi Order, all of those, they're magnificent stories.
Well, it's kind of that's why I say this is my present because
Mhm.
I'm discovering things because I love Star Wars. But I grew up watching the OG trilogy on VHS to the point where I think the I still have the tapes, by the way.
Aw.
I think the
Yeah.
tapes the music, if I put it in a VHS, the music would not be good. It might be a little scratchy a little bit. Um, but yeah, so that's what I've been reading. I know a lot of friends in the Wheel of Time sphere have been recommending me the Wheel of Time series. So that's my next go-to series to read. That's probably going to be my next present series, so to speak.
Mhm.
So
Nice.
I am really looking forward to that, and especially since there'll be season 2 coming out, and I've not seen the Wheel of Prime series
Oh, yeah,
yet. So
the Wheel of Pride. I hear what European lore, he always goes, "Pride."
but it's kind of I because I have multiple friends who are in the Wheel of Time sphere, including like Salty Traveling Sea
Yeah, I
here,
was gonna say, I
and
was
and
coming down.
and some many other people that I know who are good friends of mine who have been like eviscerating and completely burning it all to the ground, the show and
Mhm,
everything. So I'm like, I need to read the series, not because they've recommended it, but I love their passion for
mhm.
defending it so much. And I've never was introduced to it when I was younger, so it's kind of one of those things where this is my present experience. So I can't wait to start diving into the book. So
Oh, well, yes, and I have something to say about that, but first, thank you, Salty Texas Sea, since we summoned you. If you say Wheel of Time 3 times, Salty Traveling Sea will appear. Thank you for the $1.49 super sticker, and he gave you a rose. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the support of the channel, and yeah, it's partly your fault, Salty Traveling Sea, that I finally started reading the Wheel of Time. I everyone knows my story. I read the first book like 20 years ago, barely remember a thing about it because I read the first one and then I broke up with the guy who loaned it to me because we were reading it together and I'm like, screw this, I'm not reading this. And so I
I
almost
know
forgot
that feeling very
everything.
well.
Yeah. So but I just couldn't take it anymore because I did the biography of Robert Jordan basically because of my love for his Conan books. And then I just did it because I know so many people that have so much love and passion for this Wheel of Time story. So, and I forget what it was. I think it was when Salty Traveling Sea had Disparu on or something, and they were having this. I don't know. They were just being all passionate. And I've had Lady Gravemaster talking about it on my channel, and I just said I can't take it anymore. I'm going to start reading it, even though it'll be very long. And I swear, I picked it up and read 100 pages right away. And I'm like more than halfway through the first one. It's only been like a few days because I can't stand it. It is so good. I mean, girl, it is damned good. So I understand why everyone's losing their crap about this, as they someone said, the wheel of crime. And yeah, and it's because you will not regret it. So I'm probably going to finish the book in about a day or two. Yes, woo woo, yes.
Well,
And oh,
it's funny watching all of these friends because again, I was never properly exposed to the Wheel of Time series growing up because of other personal circumstances. It's just what it is. Life tends to direct you in different directions where you just don't have that kind of presence or exposure to something like that. So now that I have, and I'm seeing all these people fighting for Wheel of Time and such, and hear them passionately talking about these characters and these stories and the contrast between the show and the actual books and everything else. I'm like, I want to read this series. And it's one consolation prize with all of the things that Hollywood does to
mhm,
a lot of our favorite fandoms and IPs and everything. Um, it's certainly making me read a lot more.
mhm, yes.
And I'm pretty sure it's happening to a lot of other people too.
Yeah, well, and because everything just yeah went crap, and that's why I started reading with the Feist books because Steve Kenobi or whatever he wants to be called nowadays, just Steve or Lord Stigglesby. He introduced me to the Raymond Feist books because again we just finally realized that a lot of these fights for our IPs is just a waste of time. Let's go backwards. And he bought me the Magician book by Raymond Feist, and oh, it is just amazing. And then he's like, oh, and by the way, there's something called Dragonlance, and I was like, oh, of course I know Dragonlance. I know it in pop culture, but I'll read them. And then holy mother. It is amazing. And they just had a new book come out today. They've been writing these books since the 80s. Like we're talking 40 years on. Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss. And then the R.A. Salvatore books, the Dritz books, the Forgotten Realms. So just go to a half price bookstore or a thrift store. You can get them for pennies and they are amazing.
Nice. Have you read, oh gosh, this was kind of like an early 2000s type book series, but this is a present type book series anyway. Have you read the Aragon series?
I have not. No.
It's been a long minute since I've read them, but I remember they had this was during the time where there was a lot of, I think, due in part to Lord of the Rings success.
Hmm.
Probably that's why, Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe happened. There was a book series, oh gosh, Christopher Paolini, I think that's his name. The one name I remember
Yeah.
tonight. The Aragon series. They had done there was a movie adaptation to it, and I remember I read the book and I watched the movie, and the movie was highly disappointing to a lot of people.
Hmm.
They were talking about it when they were in development of it, to having sequels to complement the books and everything else, and yeah, it didn't go over too well because
Oh,
the adaptation of the movie itself was not that great.
yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of fell out of favor, but, yeah, Darius says Pellini was only 16 when he wrote the first book, I believe. Yeah, he was in high school when he first wrote that book. It was it's a very I liked it when I was growing up with it. So, I was just a few years older, I guess, not much older than him. So, it was definitely for around people my age when we were growing up reading it.
Hmm.
And then when the movie came out, we were all disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some different opinions about the Aragorn or Aragon.
Aragon, I know it
Aragon.
had he had to make it like very similar
It's like,
to.
really? Why? Yeah. But anytime there's a disappointment, and I think they did the same thing with, what was it? The they're about ready to do a new series on it. The one with the gods. It's, what is that called? You know what I'm saying? Those books, The Lightning Thief, or what are
I know what you're
where the
talking about, and now it's escaping me.
yeah, it's totally escaping me. Help me out in the chat here. I've heard those books are good, but they're about ready to do a new series about it, and of course everyone's kind of concerned. But the actual movie wasn't any good. Dag nabbit, I just can't believe it. Um, yeah, they're all talking about Raceland. Yeah, Raceland is a great character from the whatchamacallit, the Dragonlance. Yes, everyone loves Raceland. I love him. Percy Jackson. Oh my gosh, thank you. It was gonna kill me. Percy Jackson. Yes. Yes, thank you. Evan, Percy Jackson. They're helping me out here. Yeah. So
It's funny that Soul Assassin said that, yeah, that movie didn't help the Aragon series. No, it didn't. He was still working, Pellini was still working on finishing up the series,
mhm,
and I think the movie came out when the second, of course, I could be wrong
mhm,
because my timeline is a little off here, but I think the second book was already done and the movie came out, and the movie, yeah, didn't do so well, and it really didn't help the series because then after that, everybody was like, "Oh, well, the story's, crap." So
mhm.
it's
Yeah.
just that was the sad part of it all. So, yeah. But yeah, Percy Jackson, actually I have not read the series, and that's another thing that I need to read. It's like I have a never ending list of things that I need to read because I tend to reread the things that I enjoy anyway.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
because I know how it ends, but at the same I know it sounds very easy.
Mhm.
But sometimes you just need that uplifting feel good part of it too, of knowing
Mhm.
where it's gonna go and where it's gonna end. You just need the good story to bring you there, so to speak.
Yeah, well said. Gosh darn it. Yeah, apparently, yeah, Gadfly fiction they messed up the mythology. Well, yeah, I wonder about that. I personally have not read them, and I couldn't imagine if someone is a big fan of the mythology, it might be a bit
A little
annoying.
bit of problematic for them, yeah.
Yeah. The Greek gods are gonna be pissed. Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you something, the past and present that and future, the Conan. I mean, Robert E. Howard, I have had such a new appreciation for him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's new Conan stuff, so, with I listen to Midnight's Edge a lot, and Andre is always on top of talking
Yeah.
about Conan, so
Hell yes. Well, I'll tell you, they just came out. Robert Jordan, of course, wrote some fantastic ones. Robert E. Howard, of course, the man who created it, amazing. Plug, I did a video on his life. I actually visited his home and his museum a few
Oh,
months back.
wow.
Oh, it was amazing. And it's so those are actually my own pictures there. I am such a nerd, and I have such an appreciation for what he did, and it's just such a tragedy to me because, of course, he sadly took his own life at the age of 30, and that
Mhm.
he was able to do all of that before he was 30,
Wow.
and unfortunately, again, he had some mental health issues, but not only do we have Robert Jordan, they just came out with a new book last year, of Conan, and it was great. You see, not all mainstream stuff is woke, and there, and even in comics, there's some really good stuff. And I've read the free comic book day prequel to the new Conan series that's starting tomorrow. The first one's coming out, and it is amazing. It was amazing. So I'm fired up to tomorrow. I'm going to go straight to my comic book store and get the first edition, number one of the new Conan series that Titan Comics is doing, and they're also reviving the Savage Sword of Conan. So it and I don't. You can't ruin Conan. See, amazingly, Conan has not been ruined yet because I think they've just left sword and sorcery alone. I don't know.
I think it's just too this is probably the wrong terminology for it because it's sword and sorcery, excuse me, but it's
Mhm,
way too grounded in itself,
mhm.
um, and not in a bad way, like, it's entrenched, like, it's Conan. I mean, you can't if you sissified Conan, then that might cause riots in the
Yeah,
streets. You know what I mean? Like, it's so entrenched into its own thing. It's grounded in its own world and its own thing that I think it's well, knock on wood here, nigh impossible for them to even try to do something. But then again, they tackled Lord of the Rings, and so there you go. So
yeah,
that
yeah,
I thought would be highly impossible, but, I get surprised every year.
yeah. Well, and also I think perhaps maybe the reason why it hasn't been messed with, everything that you just said, but even back in the 1920s when Robert E. Howard was writing, actually he started writing him in the early 1930s. The they had women, badass women running around, swords and fighting and all of that stuff. So it was naturally integrated, and because it's a barbaric world, yeah, Conan's going around in a loincloth too. The you get the hot babes and the dudes.
It's totally believable in its own world,
Mhm,
the way that it's set up.
mhm. It's a barbaric world, so it's going to
Yes.
be like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So but yeah. So
Sorry, I needed to clear my throat,
oh,
sorry.
no, no, that's okay, that's okay, and so while sometimes I think that we do lament because there are some of our favorite IPs that have been messed with, and of course, you mess with Lord of the Rings, that's like almost messing with the Holy Scriptures, but in a way, there is actually good entertainment that is out there if you just have to find it, and
And we
it's
all need to help each other if we have questions on things, help
mhm.
each other, guide each other in certain directions because you never know. It's just like the wheel of time, folks. I know that's present past if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's present for me because I am discovering something new.
Mhm.
So never stop talking about any of these things. You never know. You might inspire somebody like me to read it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what someone said. I think it might have been Steegs that said that there is new material. If it's new to you, it's new,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Exactly.
just go backwards. Yeah. Salty Traveling, he says Amazon didn't make a Conan streaming show because it's too toxic male. I heard that was something that I guess they just couldn't figure out how to do it, and that's I think what you were saying, Magitek, is that it, you can't wokeify sword and sorcery.
It's very hard. I think it's very hard to,
Yeah.
because it's a like you said, it's a barbaric world.
Mhm.
How do you weave there's no shutting anyone out of it. Yeah. How do you unweave or unwoven? I don't know what the correct
Yeah, yeah.
terminology is. How do you peel back those layers of barbarianism, basically, or their barbaric type world? You can't, because
Yeah.
that is basically what that world is. That's part of that story. It's almost like a
Mhm,
characteristic of its, like a character in and of itself. And if you get
mhm,
rid of that character, it's no longer Conan, like, period, 100%.
mhm. It's not a barbaric world, not well, and you've got characters like, Red Sonja, even though that was not created, by Robert E. Howard, but so you have the women. Yeah, and, they did it in The Witcher. Oh gosh, well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
That took talent on loan from God to do that to The Witcher. That was a new level of messing up to have Henry friggin' Cavill and try to sideline Henry friggin' Cavill. I mean,
And know for a fact he probably, like, I haven't watched the show, but, from what I've been hearing from other people, it sounds like this 3rd season or whatever, he was clearly checked out.
yeah, well,
And I don't blame him,
yeah.
because they completely sidelined him, so he didn't even, like, he couldn't even be the Witcher. Like, he wasn't even the Witcher in his own show, so
Yeah, well, and not just that, he actually is a genuine fan of a whole bunch of nerdy stuff, and so he knew the material, he was a fan of it, he read the books, he played the video games, and it was kinda soul killing, and you hear, like, little hints every now and then of how he was feeling about what they were doing, and yeah, you just don't mess with Henry Cavill, and from what I know about the stories, because 'cause I've been playing the video game, I'm very well aware that that's not the same as the books, but I've been told that the video game is at least faithful to the characters and the way they look and the way they act, and then I think back to the way they were in the TV show, I'm like, "It's not even close."
oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, oh my goodness, how do you ruin The Witcher? That was certified gold, yeah.
Exactly.
Uh Oh, Sentinel says, "Look at the a Manowar album cover. That is how Howard intended Conan and his female love interest at time to look like." Yes, Manowar. I have been learning a great deal of appreciation for Manowar, rather Man-O-War, the rock group, or I don't know if we call him. Is he heavy metal? I don't know how to describe him, but he is actually an amazing singer, and you can tell that he actually knows what he's doing with his voice. So yeah. Ancient One says, if another Conan movie ever happens, they need to bring Jason Momoa up as the Son of Conan while they allow Arnold Schwarzenegger as well as King Conan, Crown of Iron. Well, that would be interesting. I thought Jason Momoa was a very good casting. He definitely he looks actually more like Conan than Arnold Schwarzenegger because Conan is dark haired and all that. It was just a bad screenplay. It just was unfortunate.
Mm.
Yeah. So now, as far as love stories and stuff goes, I don't think I'm just not into those anymore, to be
Probably
honest.
the
A lot.
only ones
So,
I like are probably Jane Austen
yeah,
novels.
I still go back because you don't get better than Jane Austen. Uh, I, th- they're trying. Well, like with Bridgerton, uh, I watched some of Bridgerton, but I think it's supposed to be in like an alternate universe because it's.
Well, see, for one of my favorite, I would say my favorite authors right now, as far
Mhm,
as and people are gonna laugh at me.
Uh-huh.
One of my favorite authors right now, as far as a love story is concerned, and it's a really good love story. It's not like erotica books or whatever. It's
Mhm.
actually really like a really really sweet love stories, and it's grounded in some form of it's Christianity a little bit, with a little faith based and some good messaging behind it.
Mhm.
Characters dealing with hard times, there's flaws going on, and what have you. And is a author named Rachel Hauck, Hauck.
Mhm.
A lot of her stories are based on a lot of uh, Southern modern day fiction, if that makes sense. But
Mhm.
some stories where, like her first book, The Wedding Dress, which I love to death, and I love listening to the audiobook. It's so
Mhm.
so good to hear and listen to, because the narrator talks, with different characters, especially with that good Southern Georgia drawl kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's really good because there's certain moments where it's modern. Some of the narration is during the modern day, and it will take it back in a certain time in history, and you're wondering where this is going. Why today present and then the past going on here? Well, there's always some sort of interesting connection between the two, and you just don't know how it's going to end up. But it's something to do with like interwoven some sort of faith into it.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite messages of one of the books that I like listening to is the term loving well. And it
Oh.
kept getting repeated several times, but it was never told. It was more like, I don't want to say the story or what have you, but it's very well done in that it gives you the good message of what loving well is.
Oh. Mhm.
So it's very these are she does a really good job with some of her stories. So I highly recommend that author. If anybody's interested, I'm sure some of the guys out there are not, but
Yeah,
it's
but hey, but it is a genre, and it is one of the areas of fiction that is still doing well. And the
yeah.
reason is because no matter what happens, there's too much daggone money to be made in old fashioned love stories. Even the bodice rippers. Bodice rippers have uh, an aspect of tradition to it as well. The whole woman being swept off her feet, literally, figuratively. It it's been left alone. Young adult fiction is a little bit different and maybe a little more insidious what they're doing with young adult stuff.
Mm,
Because I think,
yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's not
but
the same young adult fiction that I grew up with, that's for
no,
sure.
there's a little bit of indoctrination going on there, but but not to knock, because female literature is something great, it's something beautiful, and I wouldn't expect a dude to wanna,
Yeah.
it really wasn't written for them, you know what I mean? In this case, it was not. No, it is not. But I always tell men, if you want tips, read them, because if you want to get the girl,
Yeah,
read
it's
some
like,
of
do
those
you
books.
it's like, "Oh, can you give me some hints or clues?" I'm like, "Well, do you have some time to read something that's actually
Yeah.
might give you a good hint and clue into all of this?"
What a
Because
woman wants, yeah. I would say watch Pride and Prejudice and take notes.
yes, Pride and Prejudice, for sure. What's your favorite adaptation of Pride and Prejudice? At least, there's only 2 that I'm aware of, peripherally and mainstream-wise, but,
Um,
I personally like the one with
Firth.
Colin Firth.
Mhm.
Is that his name? That actor? Probably
Yeah.
saying it wrong. The
19
'90s version.
yeah, 1995. I was never mind what year of college I was in, but yes, I remember it, and we all went insane over it. I mean, you just couldn't that whole scene where she's playing the piano and he's looking at her, I was like, "Oh my gosh."
I know. Oh gosh, I that it's so funny because I saw what is it? Uh
Well,
The modern one. What was it? Oh gosh, what was her name? She played Pirates of the
Oh,
Caribbean.
Keira Knightley, the one from 2004. Keira
Yeah,
Knightley
Keira
and,
Keira Knightley in that one, and that was okay, and I enjoyed it, but then I read the books, and then I watched and I got recommended the 1995 version. I'm like,
yeah.
the 1995 version's a lot better, in my
Oh, yeah.
opinion.
Well, I've actually seen 3 versions because the version that was most common for me was a BBC adaptation from 1980, I believe. And that was back when the production values were almost like soap operas, like, you could it looked like it was filmed on someone's video camera in their living room, but the acting is always good. You know those types I'm talking about that you'll see on PBS sometimes from the 70s and the 80s, and that Mr. Darcy was really good, but the Colin Firth one is it's the best, even though they did take some liberties, like, he did not go swimming in the lake with his white shirt stuck to his body.
I
Yeah, yeah,
I know.
exactly, yeah, you're gonna get lucky, yeah. Oh, so they're saying Pride and Prejudice and Zombie.
Oh gosh, oh yeah.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. So, yeah, in the 19 I see, of course, so I saw the one in the '80s, and then I saw the one in the '90s and the 2004. The 2004 one is the one I like the least, but I can appreciate it. Some of it was a little bit silly.
It looked too it looked too
Modern if
modern-esque, and I felt like Shakira Knightley was still playing her Elizabeth Swann character. That's what it
yes.
felt like. She was playing the same type character, and I didn't feel like she was playing a different character, if that made sense.
Exactly, and just the aspects of it, like the way that they they had Elizabeth, like, messy, like her hair being messy and
Yes.
being slothful. It's like, no, 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 no. She wasn't like that.
No.
And if she had been, no one would have wanted her, even Mr. Darcy after he falls in love with her. It's like, girl, you got to put on a bonnet, you got to brush your hair. Uh, Hell, even nowadays, a woman's not supposed to go out looking like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and she does need to eat a sandwich. Yeah, that actually did distract me. The girl, I hope she's okay. But
Like
yeah, I know it sounds terrible. It's like when you feel like the person's anorexic, you're like, oh, please, please, please don't, please eat something. Um, but someone mentioned the Persuasion. Oh, did you see the new Persuasion?
somebody said it was on Netflix?
Yeah, it was horrendous. I
I
mean, they
did not see I didn't even hear about this. It must have been so bad it kind of, like,
I
swept
mean, it was so
underneath.
bad that even feminists didn't like it. But, yeah, they made her, like, into an alcoholic and all that. Are you familiar with Persuasion? Have you read Persuasion?
It's not my favorite of the Jane
Oh,
Austens, but
interesting.
I did read it, and I did watch oh gosh, there was a
Kieran
oh,
Hines, the one in 1996, I believe.
yes, I do believe it was that one that I saw, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not my favorite of her stories. Personally, I like Pride and Prejudice and Emma,
Mhm. Oh,
um,
I love Emma.
and I do have a soft spot for Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, hell yes. Mhm.
I think that those 3 are yeah, those are my favorites, but Pride and
Okay.
Prejudice is definitely the top.
Yeah, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, but can you imagine having the main character having Anne, an alcoholic? And, I mean, it's just awful, and she's, like, yelling at Captain Wentworth, and it's just, like, it's so bad, it hurts. I mean, it physically hurt, but I had to watch it because if I was critical of it, and I'm like, "Okay, how can I be critical of it if I don't watch it?" So I did go ahead, and it just shows you that they just don't even get Jane Austen, or they tried not to get Jane Austen. I don't think they'll, try something like that again. But, I
Yeah.
like Persuasion. Maybe I've related a little bit too much, about regrets.
Oh my gosh.
Like, "Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have let that guy get away." It's like,
May
"Why? Why, God, why?"
is it maybe I need to, because it's so funny, because I always, typically you have your comfort food. I have my
Mhm,
it's like comfort food, comfort books, comfort
mhm,
movies, whatever you bring along with you to keep in rotation just in case if you read a new book that you're venturing out on didn't
mhm.
turn out to be so well. That's what happens to me when I go to the library
Oh, I
sometimes.
see. So, yeah, maybe well, yeah, but related too much to the story.
It's kinda like it's
Yeah.
kinda like one of those things where, you'll read it. So maybe, I maybe have to reread Persuasion. Maybe I read it too young. Like, sometimes you can read certain things in certain periods
Mhm,
of your life where you just don't have appreciation for it because you
yeah,
don't have that world experience or something like that.
mhm,
But maybe I should read it again now, so
yeah,
that way maybe I think differently of it, so
yeah. Or maybe not, like I said, it depends on what kind of a mood you're in. 'Cause, I always say if I relate, too much to, something like, that movie, what was it, Signs? I don't know if you've ever saw it, the one with, Mel Gibson, but one of the things, because he was
Is it a
dealing with
if it's a horror movie, I don't like horror movies.
Okay, yeah, well, it kind of was. It was a very weird movie, but one of the things is like there's a he was having a crisis of faith because his wife was violently killed in a car crash. But there was one line in there where he is so bitter and he says, "I am not gonna waste one more minute on prayer." And at the time in my life, I was like, I relate too much to this character right now because like when pain happened, the whole why does bad things happen to good people? I was going through something like that, and I was like, I'm relating too much to this character right now. I'm not having fun. Yeah, it depends on where you are. If I mean, I always tell people my favorite psalm is Psalm 22. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? But see, Gadfly says maybe Mags and Miss Martin Music should do a Jane Austen read along series. Well, if we have time.
You know,
It's
time is
like,
of the
yeah,
essence.
yeah. Oh, hello, Sammy Cape. Hope you're all well.
Hey.
Yeah, this is right up your alley here. Um, yeah, science was a War of the Worlds by single family perspective. Yes. Um, yes, I do Darcy. Oh my goodness. Okay, well,
Oh gosh, here we
me
go. We
too.
might
The I did do a persuasion with Alasia, a troubled green. Well, we
Okay.
did some of that, and we were going to do one on Jane Eyre, but life keeps happening. But who knows? Who knows what we might do in the future? But always good stuff, and I do appreciate it that you all do enjoy hearing us talk about it. It is great literature, and I want to.
There's definitely, pieces of it that we can all learn from.
Mhm,
It's not necessarily like women reading Jane Austen or whatever. I think everybody it's just like us reading something from, oh gosh, Beowulf,
mhm,
like the women reading Beowulf. It's just we can all learn pieces of each other through these stories because these stories have been passed down. They, in a sense, and built up through a paradigm of knowledge and understanding of human existence and experience.
mhm.
So it we can all relate to all of this stuff. Um, just because it's fiction
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean we can't relate to it.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why
Yep.
fiction has caught our imagination so much. Oh dear me. Well, now future. See, this is a weird one because, of course, we can't see into the future.
I have a magic 8 ball, so to speak,
Yeah.
and then I shake it.
On 900. What was it? The psychic hotlines that they used to have.
I know. I just love the 8 balls because yeah, that was something that was, like, always
Oh
popular
yeah.
back in the '90s.
Yes. No.
Throw it
Maybe.
out. Yeah. So now I have one
Yeah.
on my desk. It doesn't really work too well, but
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
really help me at all. But
Yeah.
yes, we can't see into the future, so, I don't I'm gonna take a shift real quick.
Sure.
It's not we're not talking about books here, but probably talking about video games because I like video games too.
Hmm.
Um, I've been keeping an eye and hanging out with some friends who we're trying to keep an eye on indie games that are coming out. And oh gosh, what was one that it's not, um there's an indie game. Let me see if I can pull it up on my Steam list because it's keeping an eye on it. But I like retro style type games and what have you.
Mhm.
But also I like being able to support indie and up and comer type people to be able to share their stories and bring it to life. Then that's different from the mainstream. And it's a game called Sea of Stars on Steam. And I know it's not a book series or whatever, but I just saw it. But it looks fairly interesting. It looks like it's got great scenery and great looking characters and storytelling going along with it. Max is who likes video games. Yes, I do.
I do too. Certainly.
But but because I'm very much into Final Fantasy games, and I grew up with the pixel games themselves. Final Fantasy 6, hello, that's my character
Yeah.
basically and my avatar. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Sea of Stars. That will be released
Mhm.
in August of this month, so I am looking forward to that.
Oh.
So I will hopefully get to play it and check it out. But yeah, it's very hard because you have to almost rely on for me anyways, I don't know about you, Teresa or chat, but I feel like you almost have to rely on each other to for good reviews to look out for entertainment.
Mhm.
Um, we can't trust the mainstays legacies that we used to trust before because they have completely and utterly shattered that trust with all of us. So now we have to rely on each other. So um it is difficult because you have to look at, like you have to scroll through Netflix and HBO Max and all this other
Mhm.
stuff, and you tend to go back to watching the old stuff again because
Yeah.
you don't know it's hard to venture out into
Yeah.
something new and actually enjoy it like we used to enjoy it before because we've been stung so many times.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. But but I like what you said about us depending on each other because I think that since there have been so many high profile disappointments, some of the good stuff has fallen under the radar. So we need to help each other also find those.
Exactly,
Mhm.
because a lot of times, like all of us, we're either working during the day or we're busy working on other things.
Mhm.
Or life happens where some of us just don't have the time to sit there and now I'm not saying everybody else is doing that, but
Mhm.
um I could probably search for something and find something and enjoy it that I might be able to pass along to you, but you might have the time over here one Saturday or something like that, and you find something completely different and we can share and bring things to the table.
Mhm.
Um, and it's stuff like that where we have to rely on each other in that moment because again, not everybody has can do these things on the same time. We have to do it on
Mhm.
our own time. And but yeah, it's been it's interesting because was it word of mouth talked about Tulsa King, the show there. And I know
Mhm.
and it's my and surprisingly enough, my parents like that show. So,
Yeah.
just watching along and enjoying it together as a family
Yes.
is something that you can't find these days with newer entertainment, unfortunately. And so yeah, definitely continue to always always continue to talk, and we even have comic books now with ISOM with Eric July. So it's kind of we're in the sphere. Let's all sharing is caring for the lack of a better phrase. And if a lot of times, like I said, not everybody has the time to find something, and when you find something, you share it along. I mean, Cobra Kai, look how big Cobra
Oh,
Kai became.
yeah.
Um, I didn't know about the show until about last year, and then I binged right through it.
Girl! Oh my gosh, yeah, 'cause I was watching it right away. It's so good. Yeah, I'm so m the on that's the only reason why I'm mad about the writers' strike because it stopped them from doing the show. It's like everyone else, some of those other Egypts, I'm fine with them not filming, but I want finish up Cobra Kai. We have 1 more season left.
I know, and they oh gosh, and they had I think they were waiting to get started, and then, of course, Netflix finally greenlit them, but way
Mhm.
too late. So, I think they
Yeah.
had some material from their last season that they were gonna hold over to this season to finish it up, but, at least that means what it won't end right away. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way, because
We
this
have
is their
something to
last
look forward
season.
to. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I'm not
Oh, yeah,
familiar.
that's another thing I'm looking forward to,
Oh,
is
okay. I'm not familiar with that.
Epicverse is a company headed up by Josiah Rises and Epic Mike of, both are, either part of G&G or they're relatively, for lack of a better phrase, adjacent to it. Um, but they're creating their own movie company or their film company, and
Mm,
they are really serious about trying to create films and creating a website where you can be a part of this.
oh,
So there's another source of entertainment, avenue for anybody to explore, and you can find things even through, what is it, through, Pluto TV and, Tubi, because I think some indie creators like to post their stuff on there as well.
mhm.
But yeah, it's just a matter of everybody. It's a word of mouth situation. It's kind of, very grassroots, excuse me,
Mhm.
where it's organic, where we're all talking to each other. It's almost like we're at the water cooler again.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay, well, that's cool. Yeah, and that's the other thing is that, if you do have a story to tell, go ahead and do that. I've had as a guest here several times the Mega Geek, and he has an independent film series called Rebecca Gold on his website, and it's just called Rebecca Gold if you want to watch that. He's done a few independent web series. Well, I shouldn't say web series because they are it's actually technically a film. He's even won some indie awards for it. But yeah, it has been published on his YouTube. So you can
Nice.
find some of those. Yeah. Um
You said
so
NB Geek, you said? Or,
the Mega Geek is his name, but his website is actually called Rebecca Gold because that's the name of his series. It's called Rebecca Gold, and I've had a chance to interview the actress also who plays Rebecca Gold, and they're all actors. He works in the movie industry in London, but these are the ones that he's done himself. So uh, those are the kind of things that you can all do, and there is some self-publishing you can do through Amazon, many people do that. You just have to put it in a certain digital format and they'll print it on demand. So,
yep,
yeah.
we have creators out there like a Dega Outlaw who has done that, published his work on Amazon. So there's multiple different avenues for stuff like that.
Mhm.
And what a time to really take advantage, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
During the strikes and everything, might as well take advantage of it. Bring your own story to the table and see what sticks, see what happens, see what, if anybody wants to take a chance, or um who knows, maybe maybe we don't need Hollywood anymore, so to speak. So,
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, they're saying that. Yeah, I guess Roman of the Empire's written a book. Copa Capitania. Okay, I wasn't
mhm.
aware of that. Yeah, and well, there are more writers that are out there, but maybe people don't know it. That some even mainstream. So there's a lot of talent out there in the circles. So yes, please everyone do a- and low risk. A lot of these, I think Sam said earlier about Sam McCabe about the digital stuff. That on the one hand, while everyone likes a good old fashioned book that you can hold in your hand, uh, digital publishing is a way to also get stuff out there.
Yeah, and having that option,
Mhm,
is helpful for both people who like to see. I
mm,
like to touch. I like to the touch, feel, and smell, and the sound and the sight of a
mhm,
book in my hands. But I can understand the space constraints if you don't have enough room for another book or what have you.
Mhm,
So digital always works for other people, and plus you can take it on the go very easily.
mhm,
You can with books, but you can't take like 20 books with you without it feeling a little heavy on the back
mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So I
For
I so I get it. I get it. But yeah, if you're the type person to do digital book reading, go for it. And
mm,
definitely have that option. As much as there are people who, insist on having a book in their hands, I think it's always good to have options available for any kind of reader.
mhm,
You don't want to cut off any option,
mhm.
because you never know. There might be more digital readers than Dempsey. I don't make my own music. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Thank you, though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, yeah, well, reading is reading, and and sometimes, yeah, I will like, if you're on an airplane or it's just not available, yeah, but I do try to, yeah. Well, I don't write my own music either, I'm a classical musician, so, yeah, I don't think I can compete with Beethoven or Mozart, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just more than happy to play and conduct it, which is perfectly acceptable. Yeah, yeah, Seven Cape says there's pros and cons, to both options, each has its place. Yeah, my
Exactly.
area is actually nonfiction, so, which is a total different style of writing and that,
And
but
different perspective too.
mhm,
Um,
yes, absolutely, so that's
and
my
not
that's
not
my love.
and not in the literal sense either. It's you speak from more. Some of it is more from an I perspective rather than from a third person perspective. Most places, most times.
Correct, yeah, depending on what kind of a work you're doing, I've retained some rights to some of my work, so a, a few of my essays have made it into some of my videos. If something sounds like really like, gosh, that sounds really well edited, it's like, well, yes, it was. Yeah, I've used some of my essays as scripts. For example, for the what the I have a video on the Grimm brothers and one for the Beauty and the Beast. That those were actually from published essays of mine. But but so that's one of my great loves, and that's why I enjoy doing some of those biographies. Those actually were not first published as essays, but my first time doing them as video essays, and um, it's a lot of fun. I need someone who plays bagpipes. Sadly, I do not play bagpipes. I have what the teachers called stupid fingers when it comes to music. Oh well, no. If they said that, they're bad music teachers. Speaking of one, yeah, speaking as one, yeah, they suck. If they tell you that, might have. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Audible changed my life. Oh well, that's great. Yeah, you see, and Audible, I found that there's some things I like to listen to on Audible. Uh, Nonfiction actually is very good to listen to on Audible. I like to listen to like pirate stuff and all that's good. Digital is better if you want to read more. It's a curious trade-off. Front is better. Yeah, there's all
Yeah.
sorts of options for the future, and uh, and even if you want to just do it, it doesn't even have to be for commercial purposes. There was a time I went through a phase where I did a fan fiction. It was well during the prequel era of Star Wars, like, started, like, 1999 at fanfiction.net and some Once Upon a Time fan fiction. It was fun. I wasn't trying, obviously, to make any money, but it was just something I felt like I wanted to write a story about these characters, and you post it on fanfiction.net and people enjoy it. Sometimes it does, because most people don't actually make a living off of being writers. If you're lucky, you might there's some J.K. Rowlings out there and the like, but the vast majority don't. Uh, Even successful writers, they have another job. They have a day job.
Well, it's I remember fanfiction.net from a long time ago. The it's well, a long time ago, it was definitely a great hub for people to really flex their creative juices, and to
Yeah.
be able to expand more of their knowledge, not just in writing, but being able to weave themselves into the story, the current story that they were using, and really try to convey and stay within that story and world's guidelines.
Mhm.
Um, that's you know that's a challenge in and of itself. It's almost like extra homework. I mean, now some fan fiction writers take things a little too much into now it's everywhere in Hollywood type of the
Yeah, yeah,
situation.
I was gonna say, and maybe that's part of the problem. Well, that's
Yeah.
technically what the Rings of Power is. When we found out that they actually did not have the rights to the Akelebeth and the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales, and it was like, so what are they doing? And they're like, well, we're gonna write a story with the names of the characters. And I'm like, that's fan fiction, and it comes off as it. And I know a lot of people say, well, they're not fans. It's like, well, yeah, but fan fiction is something like when you take someone else's work
Exactly, you play
and
within their sandbox,
yeah, play the
exactly.
sandbox. It's like also like if you're on fanfiction.net and if you want to make Galadriel, Guy Ladriel, and do all that weird stuff, and however have the hots for Sauron, and trust me, there's lots of stories very similar
Oh,
to that on
yeah.
fanfiction.net. Go for it, have fun. But they took it to a whole other level with trying to pass it off as Tolkien. And I remember how they did a very good job of keeping it under the radar that they actually were not adapting the Akelebeth and the Silmarillion
Oh, I
because
know.
it was like when the preview came out, and I was like, "What the heck even is this? This doesn't look like any of the characters." And then they admitted in an article like right after the first trailer came out that no, we don't have the rights. It's like that's why it doesn't look like anything.
And yet people still believe it's a good show, but it's just like but people can like what they like. It's just, we gotta tell them that, it's not but it's not really Tolkien.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it's just it's like, well, remember that Death Comes to Pemberley thing they did? Where
Oh, yes, oh, yes.
yeah, I mean, yes, it was that and all that, but I mean, they weren't even pretending. It's like this is not the novel Jane Austen ever wrote. This is just us playing around with the characters and yeah, it was terrible, but they weren't trying to make it like it was Jane Austen, so
Yeah,
I can forgive them.
they didn't think, like, they were like, they didn't think that they were high and mighty enough that they were, quote, unquote, "scholars," that they were able to write a story of Tolkien's caliber.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
they never said, yeah, that, like, "We're gonna give everyone the new Jane Austen novel." It's like, "Nah, this is just a fun romp where there's a murder
exactly, and they
mystery."
admitted that. They were
Yeah,
like, yeah, this is not Jane
yeah,
Austen.
and
It's
it was
just
bad, it was terrible, but I must admit, it was just like when I read fan fiction, it was a bit of a guilty pleasure. It's stupid, but that's the thing is that people just got a little too, proud of themselves. Um, oh, yeah, the Nazgals, oh gosh, yeah, yeah, everyone has
Yep.
the right to have bad taste. Well, and I will admit, I am a defender of Twilight, okay? It is terrible. I will always say that it is terrible, but you know what? I turned the pages. I watched every single one of those movies, so did it do its job? Yeah, and Stephanie Meyer wasn't pretending it was anything else other than what it was. Sammy Cape said, "It's a delusion of grandeur that gets me." Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and and again, the fact that they tried to pretend that this was like Tolkien, it would be like, "Hey, I've written a symphony. It's the symphony Beethoven would have written." And it's like, "What?" The greatest one of the greatest geniuses ever. It's like no one can write what Beethoven wrote. So it's very similar to that with Tolkien. It's ridiculous. Um Oh, April Again Vampire Hunter, that was fun. Yeah, well, see, that's a very good example too in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and even the Shakespeare Star Wars. Those are hilarious. Have you seen those?
Co What was the question again? I'm
The
sorry.
the Shakespeare Star Wars, like someone wrote Star Wars, but like Shakespeare, like a screenplay, but like Shakespeare, and it's like the A New Hope
Oh.
cometh, and it's written in iambic pentameter and
Oh, no,
in
I've
Shakespeare
not.
style.
This would be funny. Yeah,
Oh,
I would
it's
love to
hilarious, it's hysterical, but, the guy wasn't pretending to be friggin' Shakespeare.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I think people think that they and not all fan fiction writers are bad.
Yeah.
just a lot of them are just there because they are having fun in the worlds that they love the most, but they know they're not going to go anywhere beyond that. This is just for kicks and giggles and fun, for
Mhm.
funsies. Whereas then we have people like Rings of Power or the Disney sequel trilogy in so many ways
Mhm.
is messing in the same sandbox but thinking that they the know everything about that world.
Like, yeah, they do it better than George Lucas himself. It's like, yeah,
Exactly,
it's like, no,
exactly.
no.
And it's like, no.
Well, the fact that George Lucas had given them his kind of treatment for the sequel trilogy, and they're like, "Ah, no, thanks." It's like,
Exactly.
wow. It's like, okay. All right. Well, before we go into the roll 7, which is what kind of ends our pub crawl, the pub crawl game portion of it. Is there anything you would like to say that you have not had an opportunity to say so far?
Uh, no, this we've been organically talking this entire time about all
Yeah.
kinds of topics and just letting it roll, and this has been fantastic. I've had a good time talking about all
Yay.
kinds of topics here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like that, any last words? Yeah. Any last rants or anything about the future or the past or the present?
No, gosh, no, I really don't. The only thing I'm highly upset on is there could be a possibility of Dune Part 2 being uh pushed back too. So it's kind of,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know not everybody liked the first one, but I think I think it was okay and that it was
Mhm.
enjoyable, and like so many other people have said, it's a very niche community anyway that it's very science fictiony.
Mhm.
But I enjoyed it for what it was in the theater.
Okay.
Um so I was looking forward, it's like, this was another movie I was looking forward to in this year, and now it's just not going to it may not happen.
Oh man. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully it will, because I've heard good things about it, like people that are actually fans of it. I'm just not familiar with Dune, so.
I'm not familiar with it either. But I enjoyed the movie for what I know of this. It's kind of like, just just a teeny bit of the story to and
Mhm.
watch the movie, and so far, I like the way it's been done. So, I my one of my goals is definitely to read Dune itself, and see what the differences are. But so far, the movie as by its kind of like, you want to watch a film by itself, or as it is. And so far, for me, I think it's been enjoyable. So,
Mhm. Alrighty. Well, cool. Yeah, so hopefully they'll sort stuff out, and all the crappy stuff won't get written and the good stuff will. Well, thank you, Soul Assassin. Soulmate, match made in Muses Heaven. You two are great together. More, please. Wow.
oh,
Well, thank you. Well, maybe we'll see each other. You'll see us on again. I certainly would love to. Magitek, you're always welcome here in Miss Smart Muses, and
oh, thank you.
all that. So let's go ahead and do the roll 7. What this is always full disclosure. These questions came up with a collaboration between Stieg, my parent, and my parents. My mom and my dad tested these as well. We have 20 open-ended questions. I roll a d20 and 7 times. So this is the way we always end our thing, our pub crawls, and I encourage everyone in the chat to also participate with us. So let's begin. Here we go. The first roll. Yes, you never know. Well, unless you've been really paying attention. I haven't had anyone yet that's written down all these questions. Um, Okay, so Magitek Mags and everyone in the chat, what would you do if you were the only human on Earth?
Is this a timed thing?
Well, well, hopefully within reason.
Or would I oh gosh, live on an island?
Uh, okay, just live on an island and just stay there and
Oh,
mm,
yeah.
no, all
Tropical
right.
island. Just hanging out.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, no, that's okay. This is it's not to put you on the spot here. All right. Where do you feel most out of place?
Oh my goodness. This is a good one. Oh gosh, feel most out of place. Um, oh gosh.
These aren't supposed to be that hard.
No, but it's like, oh, this question is making me feel out of place. um, I feel most out of place at, yeah, I would definitely be feeling most out of place at like nightclubs or any
Yeah,
kind of place that that requires me to club it up, I guess. It's just
yeah.
not my thing.
Yeah, be with like yeah, that whole kind of clubbing frat party thing. I've never felt comfortable uh in those situations either. Okay.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you for saving us, Meteor. I cuz yeah, that's a pretty popular answer actually with a lot of us. I think that a lot of nerds don't tend to club a lot.
Well, and even I'm an extrovert and I still wouldn't like it because I'm like
Mhm.
I'm the type of person that likes to have intimate, really good conversations with people, and I feel like nightclubs would just ruin that experience.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Then I think this is for the first one. What would you do if you're the only person on Earth? Walk the Earth, looking at all the places that were close to us. Oh, there
Mm.
you go. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, number three, a question or role number three. What is your favorite movie and why?
Casablanca.
Ooh, why?
Casablanca because first of all, my parents love that movie. Their wedding song is You Must Remember This. The famous song in that movie. Oh gosh, I don't even know the title of the movie, but I can sing it.
Mm,
But I like it because there's all the good layers to it. There's intrigue, there's suspense, there's, you know, you feel trapped in trying to get yourself out of the situation. Um, there's a love triangle, there's, possibility of people betraying you, turning friendship. It's all these good little nuggets and things that just make a really good story and a really good movie. And of course, you can never forget the last line. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
yay! Yeah, yeah. Those old movies are amazing. Um, Gosh, that makes me want to rewatch it.
I grew up
Meteor.
on the classics, and this, hands down for me is Casablanca.
Oh, okay. Well, good one. Yeah, Meteor Advocate Timon says Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, Last Crusade. Yeah, that's a good movie as
That
well.
is a good one too.
Yeah. All righty. All right. What do we have? Oops. Okay. Ah. Ooh. What is the most annoying habit that other people have? You don't have to
Uh,
name names, but I mean,
no, no, no.
yeah.
Other people have. I don't feel like I wanna call people out on this. I guess an hmm, I mean, nothing bad. Oh, a really bad habit I don't like is when people invite me onto live streams, but don't really tell you too much about the topic. It's almost like you kind of roll right in blind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she is calling out people. So yes, if you think she's calling you out, she is.
I mean, if it's the purpose of the show to be like that, fine. But if it requires you to bring something to the table to talk about, then you need to let your panelists know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I'm hearing you say, if we wanted to make it more general too, is just general organization. Because especially if it's going to be live or whenever you walk into something, you want to kind of have an idea because you want to be prepared. Uh,
Yeah, you don't
and
wanna come across as an idiot.
yeah, that too. Yeah, I mean, and now there are of course all certain circumstances, of course, where if it's someone you've streamed with a lot and all that, it's like, hey, we're just going to chill, we're going to hang out. It's like, yeah,
Exactly, that's
that's
different,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes this happens. Well, I'll just call this out. This happened on Sunday night because I had when I was on Nina's channel because I had not seen Barbie, so I just stayed quiet, because it's like, hey, I haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
But so I just sat and enjoyed the listening to the conversation. Oh, meteor advocate to when people ask me to do stuff when I'm busy, like right now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's another one too. Definitely.
When people say like in every other sentence.
Soul Assassin, I'm gonna remember this next time, so I'm just gonna
Uh-oh.
annoy you.
Transparent. Steven says transparent disclosure of topics or subjects. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you have a particular title of like, with this conversation, we had a title, but we stayed within the topic of the title, but it kept a free flowing conversation. So it was very organic and it's very natural. Whereas if you have like a podcast or whatever every week and you have a specific title of the podcast and you expect people to bring something to the table without time to mull it over or something, that you know that's annoying. you
Yeah.
know there's a lack of there's a lack of organization there.
Yeah. Well, or you just say no. I'm not going to do it.
Exactly.
If there's one thing in my life that really annoys the hell out of me is people wasting my time because my time is
Mm.
incredibly precious. So, like, I won't say anything. This has never, of course, happened with a live stream. But when someone's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do something," and then they cancel but don't tell you, or wait to like the last second. And this is also like with other social situations. And it's like, listen, especially the way I am right now with my life. When I plan my recreation, it is planned because it's one of those things like where you have to clear it with like 10 different people, just because of what I'm doing right now. And then someone just to just blow off the importance of my time. uh, and like it just doesn't matter. It's like, yes, I know you just rearranged your entire family's schedules for this, but you know what? Haha, shit happens. I decided, I was too busy to do this and or bother to tell you in a timely manner. That's an issue with me. You don't waste my time.
Well, it's also disrespectful for other people's time as well. That
Yeah.
we're not waiting around waiting for people to come to us.
Mhm.
like,
Yeah. That. Yeah. So there we go. All right, let's roll through the next one before anyone gets too paranoid. Okay. What's the one thing you can't live without? Oh, that was hard. You're not allowed to answer Jesus because I had to tell that to Lady Gravemaster. That doesn't count.
live without. If I had, oh,
It's a hard one.
I know it is because I have to look at the possibilities of it all.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to seem like you don't want, can't live without your parents, can't live without your, cat, you can't live without certain things. But
Mhm.
if that they weren't there and alive,
Yeah.
I think I couldn't live without.
Um, well, previously, well, first of all, meteor advocate Simone says meat. Someone else has said coffee, and so if that helps, So yeah, okay, so if we understand that, of course, we can't live without our loved ones. That's a given.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you're not a jerk if you say something besides that. Hello, Doc Nerdy. Um, it's,
I would say I don't think I could live without actually the Narnia series. I mean, I would
oh,
Lord of the Rings is good, but I feel like you need that childlike innocence to keep yourself going.
oh, yeah, darn right.
If
Yeah,
that makes sense, I
it
don't
makes
know.
sense. Yeah, well, and that's what one thing
And
that's
Lord of the Rings is beautiful. I'm not saying it's bad, y'all. I'm just saying I'm looking
it's
at the perspective of
as a little child.
as a hopeful innocence, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Intellectual stimulation said gadfly. Uh. Oh gosh. Okay. No comment on this one. I'm just gonna say yep. All right. That's where and half the world will get paranoid. But yeah. We all know. We all know.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Uh, uh, Now I'm thinking I'm a terrible person for not being more innocent. Uh, oh, okay. Oh, we've already done this one. So let's see. Oh, if you didn't have to sleep, what would you do with the extra time?
Oh my gosh. This is something that we all talk about. With the extra time, I would finally actually do something with my channel. No, I think I think I'd be able to travel more. Like just kind of just do more things, travel and visit people and um not have to worry about like, oh, I need to get sleep the next day to go to work. Like, no, I have like maybe what 10 hours here to do
Mhm.
something with my life and be able to get accomplished a couple more things than I could. Heck yeah. I would definitely visit family. I would definitely visit friends. Um
Uh-huh.
this
Well, there
is
you
what
go.
happens. This is what happens when you depend on sleep. That you can, your life
Yeah.
revolves around sleep, work, and eat. So-
Yeah. Well, no, you're right. Because how many times have you been doing something? Has a person rather been doing something, and then you're like, "Oh crap! Since I have to get up early tomorrow, I really need to go to sleep." Uh,
Exactly. Like we're having a good time, but I gotta leave now because I gotta cut our time short. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, because tomorrow will be hell if I don't sleep. Yeah,
exactly.
I know what you mean. All right, and last but certainly not least, um, oh my gosh. Okay, take some lottery tickets because you're getting the same numbers. Uh, oh, tell me something on your bucket list.
Seeing Ireland.
Girl!
And I'm not saying that because you oh gosh, girl, I've tried to go to Ireland 2 times. Once in 2015, and then it was we were planning a trip, not 2015, but we were planning a trip for 2016.
Yeah.
And in 2015, around October, just before the holidays started coming around the corner, there was an announcement that the company was going to lay off workers, and I got laid off in December. So I couldn't go the next year because I had to put myself back through school to get the degree that I have now and the position that I have now, basically from all of that. But then um, planned, and it was a really awesome planned trip. We were working through a company. It was great communication, blah blah blah, and it was planned for May of 2020.
Oh,
And
and then, of
so
course, COVID, yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of one of those things where I would love to go to Ireland, but it's kind of like, God, are you telling me not to go? So
Oh,
are these signs, and maybe I should just focus elsewhere? But yes, if I had a chance, an actual chance where it's like legitimate chance, nothing is interfering with it, I'll go to Ireland.
well, there you go. Well, okay, it wasn't that God was stopping you. God was telling you you're supposed to go with me because I keep telling people you need to go with me or someone that can show you the stuff. You know what I mean? Because there's like the tourist traps, like everyone goes to Blarney Castle, nothing wrong with it. But like the little places, the things like I've shown on some of my Teresa travels that people just don't know about, like so you need to go.
There's a pub. Well, I'm going to say this in backstage, so but I can't say
Okay.
too much. But there's a
Mhm.
pub somewhere in Ireland that has my family's last name on it. Even though
Ooh.
I don't think we're related, but who knows? We could be related somewhere in some fashion. But I would love to take a picture there and say, "Hey, it's
It's me!
yeah,"
Yeah.
because I'll be that type of person. But yeah, it's not a place that people like. It's not like Blarney Castle kind of visitation stuff. Yeah, it's it's a different part of the country. But I'm not gonna say it
Oh, yeah,
here.
understood, understood. No, it's, understand. Well, yeah, well, and, like, for example, there's a place in Turles where, my best friend lived, and her boyfriend, they have a B&B that has a friggin' castle on their property, and we used to play around in it. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that I can show people.
Right.
It's that you just don't know. So I always joke. I've told the drunk 3POJ that one of these days we're all just going to meet in Dublin. Because flying into Dublin's the easiest way to do that, and we'll hire a car or something, and I'll show you the proper Ireland. And
It's I know one thing's on my bucket list. Well, part of the bucket list is going to see Our Lady of Knock. So
yeah, Queen of Peace. You know the song from Dana, the
uh-huh.
Lady of
Uh,
Knock.
yep,
The
yep, yep.
Lamb will conquer, and the woman clothed with the sun. Yay!
Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. So
Oh,
yep.
oh yeah, Knock is fun, well, and even in the gift shops, like you'll just find them around in Ireland. They have like rosaries and Lady of Knock everywhere. So it's
I'm part of an Irish group. I don't want to go into too much detail personally,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm part of an Irish group. So um we do charitable stuff and things like that nature locally.
Mhm.
But yeah, so yes, so it's I'm always Lord, I'm gonna say this now. I'm always envious of people who are able to go to Ireland. I'm just sitting
Oh,
here like I've tried twice. I
yeah.
tried.
Oh, yeah, I used to go every year until Movid happened, because well, there's a conference I always go to that's in Cork. I'm a believer. Cork is where I used to live, and so it's like, well, gee, I guess got to go to this conference, and happen to be in Cork and do research there. But yeah, Ireland is definitely got a place in my heart, and of course, I've had uh, friends of the channel live there. Yeah, Potato Revan and Shane Nolan, so it's a magical, beautiful place, and except for Dublin. Dublin's a crap hole. But beyond that, it's a beautiful place. If there's anyone listening from Dublin, I apologize. It's not your fault. There's just crazy stuff happening in Dublin
Well,
right now.
Ireland is more well known for its countryside more so than its cities.
Yeah.
So
West Cork especially is the best. Um, thank you, Doc Nerdy. Yes, he has a little baby boy. Yeah, he's
yeah.
a bit
And
of a preemie, so he's still in ICU. So yeah, definitely keeping him in our prayers. And he's just an adorable little baby. Oh yeah, Sam McCabe. I'd love to travel more. It's ridiculous expensive to travel within Australia, though. Oh, okay. I thought you meant like to travel outside of Australia. Um, Also ferries. Oh gosh, yeah. Oh yeah, the whole thing about ferries. Don't say the word ferry. Yeah, to say the people.
oh,
Yeah, ferries are scary. Irish ferries are they'll scare the crap out of you when you're a kid. They're
yeah,
gonna
they're
come
not
and
that
kidnap you and stuff. And
they're not
so
cute. They are not cute.
no, 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 no. They're bad. They're bad. All righty. Well, we're gonna go ahead and end this party. Thank you everyone that showed up. Too many people to thank. I mean, this has just been an amazing stream. Thank you everyone. And of course, see, we have Davina, Meteor Advocate, Dempsey, Jock Nerdy. Sam's been here. All the mods that have been here. Corey Cochran. If I miss everyone, Steve Ransom, it is not intentional. It's just so many people and too many people to thank. It's been a fantastic stream. Everyone that's been in, that's been out. I definitely do appreciate it. Thank you for all the super chats, the super stickers, all the good feelings, the happiness, and oh yeah, he's wishing us luck. Oh, we got some roses and some clapping. We got good luck and fortune. Yay, we need it. It's too. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Who knows what the future is? Uh, what's waiting for us in the future? And Magitek Bags, tell me where we can find you.
You can find me on, of course, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, and Kick streaming all under Magitek Mag. So it's not that hard to, it's not like numbers or anything or underscores. So it's all at Magitek Mags, all one. So you can find me around there. I am going to be going on finally a true summer vacation. I will be around. I'm not turning anything off, but a true summer vacation in the next couple of weeks because it is my birthday coming up. And I will be back in business once I am done with my vacation. So the summer is kind of one of those things where I need to spend time outdoors more and do things. But once the vacation's done, I will be right back at it, guys. So thank you guys for your patience. And I am working on things behind the scenes, working on a new Discord and all that. So I'm hoping to start off with having a Sunday watch stream for the in the Discord where we're watching classic movies and just movies that we all enjoy. Not, from things from like the Page Master to like Gone with the Wind. I mean, just kind of running the gamut there. So just fun movies that we can all enjoy, and hopefully I can get that started so that we can just kind of kick back and relax. No streaming. It won't be streaming at all. It would just be more like a fun time at the movies, so to speak. So
All righty. Well, there we go. Yeah. And you can find me here at Miss Smart Muses, where I talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. We're going to have another pub crawl this Thursday. It'll be Mark with a C. Mark with a C will be here at pub crawl. We're going to be talking about pop culture. That is a topic that he has chosen. So please ring that bell and subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I do appreciate all the support that I've been getting for the channel. I'm trying to get up to that 1,000 subs as well as the 4,000 watch hours. I've made the first tier. I'm looking for the second one. And also, let's see, we have Teresa Travels, probably a review of Conan, the comic that's coming out tomorrow. Also, Barbie, I'm going to be seeing that tomorrow night. So look for a review there. And Teresa Travels, Catholic Splaining on Sundays. I'm going to be on Untamed Mando on Saturday morning, actually talking about the Narnia books. We're talking about Prince Caspian and the Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for having me here, Teresa. This has been fantastic and just fun.
Mm-hmm.
Just fun overall, and really having a great conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, Grifter is asking if there's a link. Do you have the Discord link?
It's Grifter. It's not quite open yet. I have a few guinea pigs, so to speak, helping me out with it right now. I don't want to have it open to everybody quite yet. There will be an announcement, so I will let you know, Grifter, when it's opened up. So
okay.
Sorry guys, I just don't want like an influx of like 20 30 50 people in there, and I'm still working on
no, understood. Understood. Okay, yeah, just be sure to follow her, I guess, on Twitter and other places. So yeah, well, thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad we were able to work it out because it's I think we've all had a crazy few months, but we all end up finding each other. Oh, speaking of which, Jana Catania is here.
Jana.
Hello, beautiful people. Yeah. And okay, yeah, everyone say hello. Sadly, we're just getting ready to quit, Jana, but thank you for being here. And it's always great to see you all. So please have a great evening, everyone. Have a good evening, and be certain to get good let's see, what is it? I always like to say be certain to find good fiction that you enjoy to read in past, present, and future, and don't read crap.